Convene this budget work session for FY 2023 of the Centreville Town Council. We'll dispense with perhaps our more formal introductions and just get right into the Citizens Forum. Carolyn, you want to read the Citizens Forum announcement?
Welcome to this meeting of the Centreville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QAC-TV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. The scheduled agenda is available on the information table just outside. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Doesn't look like there's anybody here for public comment, so we'll move into discussion, starting with health insurance, or I don't know if you want to make introductory remarks about this budget or process for folks that haven't done this before.
Yeah, the town staff has been working on this since about December, trying to get you everything that we feel is needed for the town, and hopefully as we're going through this process, we can get through everything, and department heads are ready to give explanations based on any increases you see in their budget. And I say let's follow the agenda so that, sorry. And so we can go ahead and start with health insurance unless you guys had any questions that on the budget that maybe you reviewed before tonight. Crystal, do you have your health insurance? Yeah.
I do. I just figured you wanted there.
Yeah.
And while you're up here, COLA is supposed to be listed under that just to be brought up. So Crystal can just mention.
It's okay. No worries. You may have to.
COLA is under health insurance.
No, well, what she's saying is that in before end of service payout, COLA,
Which should have been listed, yeah.
should have been listed in
I
there.
think I had it crossed off and then I put okay, but then I still took it. That's my fault.
Regarding health insurance, Karen, Ashley, and I were on the Zoom call with Benecon, and the good news is, the increase really wasn't anything regarding high claims. It was more based on trend. So the actuarials were calculating a 9.6% rate increase. 8% of that is from prescription rates, and the 1% is of claims, claim costs. So there might be some change until we go through in June, but at this point, this is what the FY23 recommended rates will be. So we plugged in the numbers to do an estimate of what to expect for FY23. Now those numbers can change based on personnel, employees.
Just so you know, the health insurance breakdown table, if you want to see it, is in your supplemental packet in the back. Should be the 6th page.
Is this the one that you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I did put it down into a chart so you can see with regards to employees by department, what the plan costs are, as well as any anticipated for vacancies. Now with vacancies, I always estimate, I use the maximum cost. If it's a gold plan with a family, that would be the most expensive. And I can tell you that, unfortunately, these numbers are fluid based on the personnel. So I do try to, Karen and I work well together to keep up with any current numbers in place. But, just going back to the positive note of the health surplus of $109,000 that we received. which is council's decision on what to use for during the budget, if at all. And I guess, did you have any questions with regards to the health insurance? I am working with them to come up with surveys that I would like to send out to employees with regards to providers. We're going to put together webinars and things, but we did have a good discussion regarding some of the high-cost prescriptions. That was based on a previous meeting that I had with our Cigna representative, so.
And also what she's kind of, will be looking for from you guys, the split's 85-15, 85% employer cost, 15 employee. And in order for her to continue with the process with Legit and Cigna, she'll just need an okay to continue.
Right, so, yeah, we are asking for kind of an early decision on not only the split cost of the 85%, 85-15, but also kind of an approval on moving forward with the rates, as we will, I'll need to have the open enrollment sessions by mid to end of May, because they need 30 days in June to allow for open enrollment into the health insurance system. Typically, I start working on that, are we in March? So yeah,
May.
April, May, to try and get representatives to come out and talk to our staff.
The total for FY '23 is 954,976.
That's estimated based on a snapshot of our current staffing.
That's estimated with a 9.6% increase.
Correct, and it's also inclusive of vacant positions at the maximum rate, so it could fluctuate.
What did we budget for FY '22? What did we estimate?
It's in the close to 800.
Okay.
And so right now, there is a lot of vacancies, which is causing that number to skew a little bit. Depending on the folks that apply and what they need, those costs could go dramatically down.
And I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, but does that also include estimated, like recommended, proposed positions?
Correct.
Is what I also have in there. So those,
54 includes,
the proposed positions that are in the current FY '23 recommendations for,
And that's the employer portion only, that 954?
yes,
Okay.
at 85%.
correct.
And remind me, what are we paying family side?
27, roughly 27,000 a year.
No, I mean, what's the breakdown? Do we fund 85-15 on the families as well?
On everybody. So
Okay.
it's 85-15 for all the different tier groups that we have. We have the employee child, employee spouse, and family.
Just to be clear, this is probably self-evident, Centreville is paying 85, the employee is paying 15.
Correct.
So there are how many proposed? Let's just see, well, two, right? Two proposed people here?
No, 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe there's 6 proposed requested positions for FY '23. And that's on the, is this also included in there? Oh, okay. That was just my,
But if you look under each department's list, if it says vacant on the left,
yeah, it'll be the very bottom of every department. I have in there kind of listed as vacant, and then under first name, it's the position that we were requesting for FY '23.
So zoning administrator here is listed as zoning administrator, not proposed.
Right.
Correct.
And then
Yeah, in my,
Yeah, the 2 vacant positions should be proposed as well.
right, and in those, on my chart, I had put off to the left, typed in proposed. And I can certainly make that adjustment, so that way, moving forward, you see them as proposed
Yeah, we don't have a first name column either, so we don't know what the proposed are on our sheet.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure how it was included.
Yeah, just the last names.
Oh, okay, so that would be why they can't see the title, position
Oh,
title. Okay,
okay.
I can make those changes,
Maybe it's just a column that's hidden or something.
Well, you just move the first name, for those vacants
Okay.
over to the last.
All right.
Yeah,
So we can reprint for the next work session so you can see.
just so
it.
they could see the positions.
And
And
I,
it-
okay.
Oh, that's okay. If there's any changes made or decisions made tonight based on vacant proposed positions, we can adjust this according as well.
Right.
If you don't mind, would you just quickly draw my attention under each department, which ones are the proposed?
Yeah, so in,
92, is there? any-
A92 is the last three positions.
And I know that was sort of just covered, so I
It's-
apologize. I'm
No,
just
that's okay.
Making sure I got it right.
Now, do you have a position column?
No.
We do not.
Okay. So okay.
This is just the consolidated.
No, that's okay. I just wasn't sure. So, yeah, in A92, it's the last three. The first one would be like the zoning administrator. The
Yep.
second one would be the administrative assistant 2. The third is HR specialist 2. And then in B10, the very bottom, the last two would be the proposed police officer positions.
Okay.
Yep. In C11 streets, the proposed is the very last one because there's 4 vacant, well, 3 now. We just recently hired a utility worker. So that is, and we can update that one. I'll send you that information.
And C11, that one at the bottom is what type?
It's
of
the utility worker 3 position,
3.
right? And the other 3 positions, or excuse me, the other 2 positions are currently vacant.
Okay.
Yep. And then C2124, it's,
No new.
both of them are both
Actual
vacant
vacancies,
positions.
not new.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
That helps. Thank you all for
Yep.
letting me do that.
And we'll make sure that we update the chart. So it's,
And then, just so I'm clear, what I just heard as far as these being all in, that's what was asked by, say, each department, regardless of what the recommendation is, just so I'm clear
Yes,
on that?
yes.
Okay.
They can state their justification, council will make the decision.
and we wanted you to see the overall picture.
Who is the provider? Cigna?
Cigna's our current provider, yes, and that's actually legit. Local Government Insurance Trust is the ones that do the cost analysis,
They're shopping around, they're kind of your broker?
yes.
Okay.
They are our broker, but we also have Benecon as our benefits administrator. They work together,
I got you. So you're pretty confident this is a good deal?
yes. I can tell you that if you're talking about whether it's the cost, me personally, my husband, working for the county, it's more expensive. So,
The administrator, though, is it possible that if we were ever dissatisfied with that person or agency, there would be other options, but still go through legit, or?
so we're self-insured, which is different than being fully funded or fully insured. We are a self-insured, which means we're paying the full premium cost, and being that we're in a health co-op, we pay that cost into like a claims fund.
Okay.
And so everyone that is in the health co-op all has the same health insurance provider
Got it.
because we are members of Legit. When we were with, what was it, United Healthcare? So when we were with United Healthcare, we were fully insured. And it would be our responsibility or the broker that we worked with, which I want to say was like Kelly.
Kelly Services.
Thank you. They were the ones that if we were dissatisfied, we would say, look, we need to find somebody else. However, the savings that we've been able to get with surplus,
And that's the 100K we just got, so that wouldn't be happening if we were
correct,
fully insured and out on the active market.
correct.
You're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten about 200,000 over the last 4 years back in health surplus.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this is kind of a fixed cost of doing business, there's not really a decision to be made here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, 85-15 makes sense. I'm glad to hear we cover families at the same rate. I think that's gotta be competitive in the marketplace. Certainly competitive against private business.
You
Absolutely. And we have one of the best, health insurance plans, just with other agencies that I talk to. Even our broker comes up to me, or, Vacant, because they're a different company with the insurance, and they're like, wow.
And we all know that there's no plan that's going to make everybody happy, and there's always going to be a
Correct.
family that has health issues that are like in that rare category where it's a challenge. So in your opinion, if you look back over the last 5 years, what we've been getting for the last year, would you say the complaints from personnel being dissatisfied are less than or at about the same?
So honestly, I think we're because this is probably the first year that I've heard any major complaint from 1 or 2 people.
Okay.
The nice thing about this insurance, and I've done this in the past, where I can communicate with our Cigna representative and we can amend our plan. So if there is a high need for a certain service that may not be currently covered under Cigna, they would be able to work with the town or work with me to see how we can incorporate it into the plan. And it may have a premium increase or not, depending upon what the service is. And in the past, I have been able to get certain services approved into the plan.
Great.
To assist employees. So, it is something that is definitely, we can work with, moldable.
So there's flexibility. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think just education as well. So that's something that I am working on with the benefits administrator as well as our broker, our Cigna rep, to be able to send out more information and to have more employee engagement to educate them on the insurance.
Everybody good with health insurance?
So
End
that'll
of
be.
service payout?
Can we do just so we know, a consensus for the 8515 and the rates? Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, before end of service payout, Crystal's just gonna go over COLA a little bit. There's nothing in the budget in this secondary, any, kind of discussion about it, but just to kind of get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think, so every year, it's based on council's, discussion and what they would like to do to provide a COLA. I know a lot of times myself and Karen get a feel for what the surrounding agencies might be doing, what Social Security is doing, what is, as far as like how the cost of living is affecting the economy and employees. A lot of times too, if we have premium increases, the COLAs kind of help to offset the increase of the premium costs. But I think I did a draft, but that was just more for you guys.
Yeah, we didn't put anything in the budget, and there doesn't need to be anything in the budget. If there's any percentages y'all would like to see, just to have an idea, Crystal could work on that for the next session. If
Yeah.
not,
What did we just do?
We just did
brought
3%.
forward 3%.
yeah.
So,
And we passed that.
yes, you passed
Correct.
that.
That was in
This-
January.
So
wasn't it?
this budget reflects that COLA level.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the salary scale's been already updated based on that approval.
I mean, I voted for that under the understanding that I had that we would not be sort of revisiting again 3 months later. So,
And that's probably,
Yeah,
that's why we don't have it solidified, but we felt it necessary to at least just bring it up.
yeah.
One of the things Carolyn discussed, and that's why she asked you for the consensus on the health insurance, is in past years, there's been discussions and people say, well, I want to go back and visit that because nobody asked for consensus. So we're kind of bringing it up to put it to bed.
And we understand that nothing is really done until you guys strike the budget, but then in order for us to move forward, it just helps us to know where you guys are, stand, so.
Especially with the insurance rates. Just got to give the employees something solid, so.
Do we have consensus on no COLAs, or do we?
Yeah, I mean, I was under the same impression as you that we sort of dispensed of this earlier in the year, and I understand
what
where
we're saying.
inflation is and everything, but
Yeah.
we gotta do what we can afford.
Well, there could be a member that wants to talk about it, so.
I don't necessarily think we need to talk about it. I just think I speak probably for everybody in saying if we could continue to keep a pulse on kind of what other municipalities are doing, just to kind of know what the county's doing and what the feedback from our employees is, as inflation doesn't seem to be going south anytime real soon, so.
Right, absolutely.
So I would ask for consensus that the COLA was brought forward and is captured in the budget already and voted for and agreed to.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, good. Consensus.
In a later budget work session, we'll come to you with things for the health surplus, if there's any things you want to look at with that 109,000. Essentially, it'll be in fund balance.
Any further questions at all on my? And just so you know, the property and liability, can we just, is that in here?
No.
Okay.
It's
Just-
in the operating.
Oh, is it? Okay. I have a meeting, the renewal workshop is coming up April 12th. So I don't know what the new rates will be. Karen always does a percentage estimate on, what we've done in the years past. So that
5%.
may or may not, 5%. Okay, that's good. But I'll keep Karen updated, so that way if it does change, then we can mention it in the budget. So
Are you doing end of service payout?
Me.
that's gonna be Karen, so am I all done? on
Yes.
mine? Okay, all right.
So the end of service payout line was created within each department to fund leave that has to pay out when people retire or leave the agency. It's something we will encumber from year to year, so there may be years we don't have to do any at all. What we did last year was just about depleted based on one retirement we had. So my recommendation for FY '23 would be 0.5% of salary, which at this moment is inclusive in the operating budget, but can be adjusted based on anything you guys have. But the yellow just gives you the breakdown of what 0.5% of each department's salary is, and then that 0.5% you'll see in the operating budget as we go through the departments.
What did we hold back in '22? 0.5%?
We did 1.5 based on a retirement to cover the payout for that.
And we've now, of course, we made some change, right? What was the change we made to limit our liability on payouts? It was,
Within the comp, Crystal did the
yeah.
comp thing where there's a max of 100 hours.
Right.
And we pay it out every June to ensure no balances are getting like they were
ballooning,
when you guys,
right.
were yes,
So we've limited some of our exposure in this way.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's, the comp payout is budgeted in a different line in the operating budget. I'll show you when we get there.
So this is a fund that, we sort of set aside, right? What's in that fund now? Is it completely expended or?
It's probably under 15,000.
Okay.
And, talking with employees, I don't foresee any major departures. So, and that's why I kind of went low with 0.5% just in case.
And I also think that the policy change for the comp, that helped
Yeah.
with this a lot. I mean, the max you can do now is 100 hours, where before there was no max. And
Yeah, we had hundreds and hundreds of hours. So
Yes.
clearing that out last year was great for our short and long-term liability in the financial audits.
So you think we'll end the year with potentially $10,000 to $15,000 in this account?
Yeah. Yep,
And so we'd be adding another 13.2 to it, essentially?
essentially, yes. And so you'll see it in the operating budget. I'll show you as when we get through it. Again, you guys could raise it, remove it. And I gave you a bunch of options on the tab just so you could kind of see what each 0.5% would cost.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Karen, but in the past, before FY '22, we didn't cover this in the budget?
Correct.
We just sort of let it ride?
And so what it did was it would hit the department salary lines, which would automatically require a budget amendment at the end of the year because there wasn't enough salary to cover the payouts.
Tremendous unfunded liability. for sure.
Absolutely.
We have consensus on 0.5%, or do people want to see more? I mean, given that we've already got some cash in there, I'm not inclined to go any higher than that, but folks want to abide by the staff
Fine with me.
recommendation?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so if
Property
you'll,
tax rates.
do you want to go through the separate
Oh, yeah,
things and
yeah.
then,
No, you know what, we're done, right? We'll just go right into the property tax.
like, no budget? All right, so if you'll go to the front of your binders, you'll see the FY '23 proposed budget. The first sheet will be the general fund summary tab. All right, so your first two sheets is kind of an overview of what you're gonna see behind it. So, it's easy to look at and see, but I think as each department goes through their additional items and lists, it makes more sense what all this is. So, the top is our property revenues that we foresee coming in based on the constant yield, local income tax. And the bottom is the expenses that each department has foreseen for the next fiscal year, including all requested items. So as we go through each department, there may be some things you want to adjust or take out, and should you do that, we'll have it ready for the next meeting for you all to see the changes.
It would be, can I make a request that we see just FY '22 actuals on this spreadsheet, on this sheet?
They are. You'll see them.
I mean, on this, I would like to see them on this cover sheet.
All right, I'll see if I can add like a column to the right.
It would just help provide some context, I think. Otherwise, this stuff doesn't mean a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's somewhere else here, but it keeps us from having to flip back and forth.
Gotcha. All right, page 3, we'll start the revenue for FY '23. So you'll see an FY '22 actual column. This gives you an idea of where we're at right now. You'll see the budget for FY '22, so you can see how close we are in what we budgeted. And then the next column gives you the requested or expected revenues that we see coming in for FY '23. So overall, our budget for FY '22, when you look at page 5, was $5,529,569, and our estimated FY '23 proposed revenues will be $6,244,403. The only big difference you'll see in this budget, and you guys could change as requested, Chip had a few ideas as far as the public utility tax and how last year we did 50% permanent fund, 50% general fund, and just we may propose a little farther into the budget, different ideas for that. Did you guys have any specific questions on any revenue items? I know there's a lot so.
One that just jumps out at me is I'm looking at page 4.
Okay.
H40 is the department, sort of 2/3 of the way down. Miscellaneous revenue Main Street Manager Program for actual current fiscal year 6993, and then proposed budget 17,000. Is there something real obvious that
She gets donations for all her events.
got it?
Yeah.
So sometimes they come later.
And so I believe that some of that also is, she does get donations, or I shouldn't say donations, sponsorships for her events. Some of this, Karen, you can tell me if I'm wrong, some of this may be her grants. Just her, I think her grants may go in this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Just why are we so far apart, budget and actual?
It's 10 grand, so it's just, is she just having a really good year, and there tends to
Well,
be
her,
this ebb and flow?
oh, you're talking about 314 actual as opposed to what's budgeted for 17. She's getting ready to go into her Drink Maryland, which is June. So she's just now starting to get in her contributions.
Enough said.
Yeah. And then she also has a grant that I don't know if we've gotten, she's just now starting her.
I don't, no, it wouldn't be in here yet.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in here yet.
And then any farmer's market revenue would come later.
Yeah, if she even has any of that. So, yeah.
And then, if I'm okay to jump in one more. Same page, the speed monitoring system, the actual current is 10,520. The budget was 50 grand. Is that,
So Chief could kind of speak on this, but he had, the company had a lot of maintenance issues. Chief has been on there for quite a few months now, and so I think Chief is, am I right in saying we're looking better now?
and is that part of what we talked about one of our recent meetings that allowed sort of a budget availability for the dividers, or I didn't know if that was part of the, where we were under budget and something.
This is the red speed revenues.
I don't know that that was, that line was specifically mentioned for the transport partitions. I don't recall that, but, yeah, there were some issues with, due to the pandemic with the acquisition of some of the parts that were needed to get these cameras back up. We've been pretty diligently working with the vendor over the last several months. When we identified earlier than that, that some of our speed cameras were in disrepair, the image quality was pretty poor, and so I was rejecting probably more speed camera violations than I was approving them. I think we've resolved that with the 3 existing cameras, and we were actually, as mentioned during some of the monthly overviews, we're working towards acquiring additional cameras to include Little Kidwell and some other locations that we'll identify here in town. So I think we're going to see that number get to where it needs to be this year.
Karen, H60 and Fund 3 here, sale of space, those numbers are exactly the same all the way across both columns, so both rows. So what,
One of those is the general fund side. 50% goes to the general fund and 50% goes to perpetual.
okay.
And then the differentials that we're looking at for rents at the wharf and the marina revenue, is that pandemic driven?
So, yeah, I mean, the rents at the wharf, there was a reduction for quite a few months for the tenants, and so that's why you're not seeing us close to receiving what was budgeted for '22.
And you had sent really good data on that. I just wanted to draw attention. And then, of course, if you go back up to that second row under total other services, same page, you know, we jumped from 750 actual to, you know, back up to 7,500. So,
Yeah, so, and at that, so Carolyn is working, getting some marina stuff now at the new rate of the $1,250.
Yep.
So,
We're over half now. I've gotten 5. I'm working on the last 4 spaces right now.
Can we go back to rents? So just what's the process by which they got rent relief? Admittedly, I didn't watch every council meeting before I was here, so.
One tenant had went to council and asked for, they were having some issues and asked for some lowering. And so it was approved to lower the 2 tenants for 4 months, 4 or 5 months.
How about the wharf?
Yes, yep. And then they are to be back at the normal rents as of now.
Okay.
Any other revenue questions?
I have just an overall one. If you look at this whole thing,
Yeah.
is there any line item where you would say we need to be on the lookout over the next 5 to 10 years? That's no longer going to be here. Nothing major.
Nothing major. The only one you may see is the parking meters, as, you know, we're not looking for revenues there, you know. So essentially that'll be something, but it's always been budgeted at 15,000 or less, so that's nothing that's gonna be very dramatic. And even with the pandemic, like income tax still, we received last year what we expected plus.
Chip has heard me say this before. I don't think the public utility tax at its current rate is sustainable. I mean, I think it's, what did Delmarva pay us? It's a great big number.
800,000.
And so the price of doing business in Centreville for them to have that building is now, close to $1 million just to be there. Like, that's a strong incentive to get out of Dodge.
And I did a sheet as we get down further on the agenda to show you what the difference is in each dollar if you guys wanted to look at changing that this year.
I mean, I know Chip is committed to not sort of counting on that, which I appreciate. The council, we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Yeah, I'll wait. But to your point about like how, are any of these unsustainable, I think they're going to go to the state legislature and say,
This needs to be
look
kept.
at what the municipalities are doing.
Yeah.
And they've got good lobbyists.
Yeah, I mean, and with my calculations, every dollar changes revenue about 72,000. So if we were to go down $3, we'd be looking at 210,000 reduction in what you see here. But, so I have some numbers when we get to that point you guys want to.
And you would hope they would come to us first?
Absolutely, and I didn't hear Pete from Delmarva. The check just came 2 weeks after the invoice. I was surprised. Verizon did send an email to ensure there wasn't a typing error. Theirs went from like 20,000 to like 100,000. Yeah, and so it's 3 companies and MCI, which their bill is like $80. So, Verizon and Delmarva Power are the 2 companies that the public utility tax is based on.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, if you want to flip to page 6, we can start with the council's budget. This is Carolyn's budget. She manages. The entire budget increased FY '22 to '23 by $1,437. And any changes that were made, you can see the explanations at the bottom. So I don't know if you want her to go line by line. Did you want her to just discuss any increases and what they're for?
Well, since, and I just want to remind folks that we've made the change to not, have these things come back before us, throughout the years. So I do think we ought to go through line by line. That might take a little bit longer, but I think we owe the town the due diligence.
Do you want every line by line or just increases, decreases? Either one is fine.
Well, so, I want to, some of you all that have not been around me quite as long know that I don't think it is the role of municipal government to make charitable donations. And I have voted against all of them, and there's $6,000 in this budget for charitable donations that I would vote to strike if I could find consensus to do that, or whatever the case may be. I just don't think it's the role of town government. We particularly, last year, I know there was a request to fund a donation the night we raised taxes. You raise taxes 13 cents and then make a charitable donation. I just don't think that's the role of municipal government.
I'd like us to just go line by line, and I know it'll take time, but speaking for myself, but probably for Eric too, it would just be helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
please, thank you.
So the first line, 6210, is legislative expense. So that covers the volunteer dinner, which is on the agenda for the April 7th meeting. I actually am bringing up to see if you guys want to do that in the springtime. But so that covers the dinner, and it covers the gifts that are given to the volunteers, and it also covers, we do Centreville dollars, $20 Centreville dollars to all our volunteers where they can use them at any of the local businesses. Office expense, I don't.
Is everybody okay with $2,000 for a dinner and gifts?
Hi.
I'd like to hear it overall.
What do you mean?
Like, go through line by line. I don't know that I'm going to want to commit to a consensus on every line until we get to the total amount for the department.
Office expense, I think, is not in there anymore. QAC-TV, so this is, we pay $150.
But hold on, so I just want to be clear about something. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But are you suggesting you're okay with Centreville dollars being, these volunteer dinners, if we can afford it? Is that?
Yeah, I'm saying I don't really know until we get down to the bottom and see where we might want to make other cuts. I don't know how I feel about $2,000 for.
Okay, fair enough.
QAC-TV meetings, so this is for QAC-TV to record and air all of our meetings. It's $150 per meeting we pay. 24 sessions, oh yeah, down here, 24 sessions.
Aren't there actually more than 24 though, if like we're here right now?
The summer only has one,
Okay.
Christmas, so we tried to.
Got it.
So the jump there, are we getting something more for that? And the reason I ask is not something that we necessarily need to discuss in these sessions.
More meetings.
Okay.
A whole lot more meetings than you originally filmed before we filmed.
And early it was funded originally by,
Peanut.
So we're fortunate
Up in
for,
the gallery.
yeah, they funded it. In the beginning, they did 6 or 8 of the sessions when we first started it.
so we're, for those dialed in from home or after the fact, we're fortunate that we have QAC-TV leadership in the room. Just a point that I would like to make since we're on it is the idea that we continue to get feedback. I don't know if you all are hearing it from folks that dial into the county commissioners meeting, and they really like the fact that there's some level of interaction in that. And I know we may want to look at that more closely, and that may not necessarily be a decision we want to make tonight. But to the extent that, we're able to get what that cost differential would be, I'm hoping that we can at least entertain that. We have, I think it's 300 to 500, he may be able to correct me, each meeting that are dialing in. And out of that group, there's folks that during our public comment wouldn't mind, and I'd like to take advantage of that. But anyway.
I'm not sure I understand what you're,
So people could Zoom citizen comment.
Zooming is an additional fee then to the $150.
So I would just at some point want to understand what that differential is. Because it's something that we're being asked by our citizenry to offer. And, when it is being done by our colleagues that sit in these same chairs, I think it's at least worth considering.
You guys might have to repeat what I say because nobody can hear me, but I did give you guys an original quote on it, and it takes a second person to manage.
Got it.
But I will tell you that for the last 6 months, there really hasn't been any public comment on the commissioners' meetings.
Interesting.
That's helpful to know. So it would take a
very.
second QAC-TV staff person and it's not being super utilized at the county.
Then I'm going to withdraw my suggestion. I'm not sure that our meetings are any more riveting than the county commissioners.
Oh, they're way better.
That's my suggestion.
Depends on what we're discussing.
We laugh a lot more.
I was going to say, I am way
We
funnier.
have more fun. To our commissioners, we still love you.
The next one is donations appropriations, so that is when someone submits a request to donate, so whether it's the Two Rivers Bike Ride or, and I actually have a list. We didn't donate really anything over the past 2 years during COVID, but I do have a list of what we have donated and how much over the previous years, if you guys want to see that.
I don't share the same ideological feeling about municipal donations as the council president. That said, I think we fund a lot of our own sort of things like that, Centreville Days and 4th of July. And so I just hesitate. I would want to see that list, I guess, to see what are the sorts of things you sponsored. Because to me, it feels like if there's $6,000 to spend, I'd rather see us having more community events than necessarily sponsoring someone else's.
And I'll jump in on this one as well. I am not quite ready to say I want to vote against this, but I do share our council president's view on this. What I would suggest, to the extent that we have a consensus on keeping some level of that amount in, is, and Ashley is aware of this as well, on Tuesday, April 5th, we're going to be kind of re-energizing the beautification committee that is now going to be called Centreville Strong. And I think it's worth those of us that are able to help push that group to do some pretty awesome fundraising around beautification, festivities. You know, does that allow us to get to a point where we encourage that folks that want to donate to that in this town and beef that up, do it, and then in time, maybe we don't need that, and maybe we don't have those requests, and we're able to say, go to the Centreville Strong group. Just my 2 cents. I don't think that vehicle is strong enough yet.
Can we say then, council would like to revisit this line after seeing the sponsorship request list?
Yeah, I think that'd be where I am.
I would agree.
Salaries, so we increased it by $1,000, and that is to implement, if the council is in agreement, for an increase in council salaries. And the way that works is you don't get it until after you're reelected. So like, if Jeff were to run this term and if he were reelected and the second person, whoever, whether it be Shelby or someone else, there would be an increase to their salaries, not to your salaries. So it wouldn't be until you go for election. And it's basically because, so you can't vote on your own salaries, you know what I mean? So
The current charter would not read in a way that would allow that.
Right, it would take a charter amendment.
Yeah. The charter requires all of us to make the same. It specifically says we all make the same.
And it actually stipulates, I think, the amount
It does.
of the salary is.
Yeah. I'm against that.
Yeah, I am too. To me, it's not enough to make any sort of difference in terms of people's ability to run. And, you know, in a time when I think people are struggling, I think that'd be, I'm not going to vote for that, I can tell you that.
I appreciate it being in there. So I'm sorry.
No.
I appreciate it being in there. I think we're putting in more work than we may have anticipated when we ran. So I appreciate the sentiment of it being in there. I just don't think the time is right.
But we don't do it for the money.
So
Speak for
I
yourself.
agree. I'm in agreement, so I think we have a good consensus here. But I did want to just ask, because I think anybody listening in from home would like to hear that I believe it has been decades since that number has changed. Does anybody have the actual number of years, roughly?
no, the number of years.
I want to say I heard it's been a decade or two, and so I just think that speaks to the
Well,
integrity of the.
I've been here 11 years and it hasn't changed since I've been here.
That was part of the calculus. The other part was wastewater treatment plant and a growing list of capital needs, that some of the decision processes and some of the, particularly when we start getting into water wastewater, the time council is going to have to dedicate to some of the decisions coming up is going to be fairly significant in at least the coming year and next couple of years. So
We're going to agree that this is a labor of love.
Except for Steve.
No comment, right?
I'll adjust that for the next meeting.
Okay, so then the pension, workman's comp, payroll, does that, all that change with the $1,000?
All that will change, yes, based on
Taking out the
the $1,000
additional.
bucks. So it'll just decrease a little bit. Each
Those
one
just are
is,
what they are.
yeah, there are percentage of salary set.
I don't know what the decrease is on that one payroll tax.
So the SUTA is state unemployment tax, and the council line has paid unemployment before for, yeah. And so we could remove this from the budget.
I mean, you couldn't even begin to collect on it
You can. We've paid it.
if this is your only job. Then you could.
It wasn't.
Then how? Because you can't still be working and collect unemployment.
We appealed.
It's benefits. It's like a percentage of benefits.
Yeah.
We're a reimbursable. Oh, I'm sorry.
Gotta come up here, Crystal.
You put a mic back there.
Just make them all sit here the whole time.
I know.
might as well do that next time.
Just come up here.
Aren't you scared? We're a reimbursable employer, which means that, we're not currently taking a portion out of everyone's paychecks to cover unemployment. And so therefore, we keep a line item with a certain percentage just
For departments that have had it recently. And so
Correct.
Crystal and I discussed this year, to reduce it, we could certainly take it away.
I'm trying to understand the scenario in which a council member
So,
would be able to collect.
trust me, I contacted the state, I've worked with
Appealed
them, we appealed it, we spoke to them.
Lost.
Were they removed from office?
Nope.
No.
It's because their primary job, they were unemployed. And so therefore, when they go to file unemployment, we, even though they're employed with us, a certain percentage of benefits is still provided.
My mind is blown, and I feel like we need to ask MML to get a bill to fix that. That's insane for a part-time municipal government to be paying any fraction.
Well, and that's just it. So technically, even, and I don't want to quote incorrectly, but I have in the past spoken with, the Director of Public Works, Director of Human Resources for the county, and commissioners are considered full-time employees. And the council is, even though in our minds, part-time employees, but the council also affords, benefits that a full-time employee would get.
So if either one of you filed for unemployment, we would pay a portion of that cost.
However percentage it is to our income at our actual job?
It wasn't a lot.
Or is it time
Yeah,
percentage?
it wasn't a lot. No, it's based on.
I'm just really curious. I'm sorry to derail this. This is just honestly.
No.
Yeah,
Would
we
you
could definitely
recommend we
get,
remove this line from altogether?
yeah, I mean, yeah, we certainly can.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a real cross that bridge when we come to it, sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's because the other departments, though, we keep a
I apologize in
percentage.
advance if I get fired from my real job.
Yeah, I only keep it in each department if we've seen it recently,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Any further questions at the moment? Okay.
Good, released.
Okay, so the next one is advertising, and that is when
We missed dues and subscriptions.
oh gosh, I'm sorry, dues and subscriptions. So that's MML increases their dues every year. We still have not received, they usually send out a spreadsheet of what everyone's new dues will be. We've just estimated it based on previous years. It is normally a couple $100, so if it changes, we'll obviously fix that. Advertising, this would be for when there are public hearings for the council meetings. Or public hearings and then the charter amendments, so I have to advertise charter amendments in the paper for 4 weeks, so it kind of covers those. We don't have Council of Five anymore. Legal fees is obviously Sharon, and that, it used to be the council's portion of the legal fees was much larger. Because I code all of Sharon's invoices, it's, okay, what's council, what's this? And we decreased this one and increased it in A92, just so it was just more streamlined. We kept a little bit in here. And Karen will probably end up moving some of that 5,000 over, or Ashley.
So I have a question on that line item then. So when our council is here in these meetings and/or answering questions directly from a council member off cycle from a meeting, is that time segregated to this end of the budget, or is it not that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So she does segregate out all of conversations, emails, whatever, but it was just easier to just do all A92, and I don't have to worry about what's going here and what's going there. And we did leave a little bit in there, so I kind of use up that amount, and then
And A92.
and then A92 covers most of it. So
Thank you.
What are the MML, I'm sorry, I'm going back, but
It's okay.
what are the MML dues in a year generally?
5,000.
Oh,
Over
so
5,000.
that's our whole,
Yes. Yeah, we pay that once a year
Yeah.
to them, and it's based on your population is what their dues are. Let me see. Telephone, communications. So this is actually telephone communications. This is covering the cost of the iPads, I believe, is all that's in that one, right, Ashley? Yeah,
That are super well used.
right.
So this is paying for data plans?
This is paying for, yes, the data plans.
So I don't have one.
Me either.
I don't either. You don't have one?
Yeah.
You should all have, if your data plan is not working, then I need to know that because we.
No, I told you I
The
didn't want
iPad,
one.
I
I don't
gave
have
you-
one. I use my own
I
iPad.
gave you the iPad back.
Right, right.
And
But
then
we're still paying for data plans on this?
I'm not using mine either.
Or all of them.
Yeah, it's a minimal amount though. If we're only paying for 24 gigs amongst all 5 of the iPads.
Shared.
But if 0 of them are being used,
Not to put myself out there, but I am going through some sort of period of geriatric eye, whatever that is. So I am probably going to use mine, but if we make a decision that because the majority are not, just for whatever it's worth, I have aspirations of utilizing it.
I mean, is that all that $2,100 is the iPads? I'd sooner see us make a charitable donation than pay for a bunch of iPads to sit in a drawer.
And I'd rather get rid of both.
There it is.
I am not using mine, so I am prepared to jettison this line item, but I am one council member.
I too am prepared to get rid of it.
How are you feeling?
Well, mine's sitting home on the counter, so I would probably say yeah.
Probably yeah, or yeah?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I said I would go with the majority. The fact that I've been serving since October and have not gotten it, I'm going to go with, I support that, so.
Let's get our iPads back to Carolyn. And I would say if other people want to use them,
Yeah, I think we talked about it in a department head meeting for department heads could probably use them.
Okay.
Yeah.
because we're probably under contract for a bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm for that,
Yeah.
We'll probably get more use out of them.
for sure.
I'm fine with
We'll get more
I'm
use
fine
out
with
of
the
them.
expense if they're being used.
Yes,
No. Yeah.
I agree.
So should they go to department heads, we'll move the expense too.
To that
So as of for now, I'll remove the expense from the council's department.
Okay, conventions, meetings, and the next two line items are kind of a combination of two. That is MML, the MML conference, summer conference.
And this is for council members to attend that?
Council members, yes. It is for council members to attend.
Well, it goes without saying that I think the council members should pay their own freight to MML. I couldn't be any more opposed to spending taxpayer dollars on sending staff or council to MML. Yeah.
I've gone to MML for years for various employment that I've had, and I do think it provides a lot of value both to department heads and council, so I would feel the exact opposite in that way.
And where I guess I would sort of agree with Ashley is if somebody's paying for their lodging and everything else, I feel like there's a greater incentive to say, I don't feel like going half of the day. You know, I kind of like the idea of if we're going to pay, then you attend the things and you bring something back, you know, that's the expectation, but.
All of us have to go? Or just the MML rep?
I do think it has a lot of value. I mean,
It does.
Previous councils all went when it was 3.
I think it has a lot of value. You should just stay up here, Kristen.
Yeah.
Just on that note regarding MML, so Karen and I think Kip as well, most all of the department heads have gone through what's called the Academy for Excellence, and that's actually more directed towards council members, and it's just a great certification, but you're required to attend, you know, elective courses, main core courses, that will help to educate council members, department heads, any staff really, but I just think it's highly beneficial. And the summer MML that we attend has a lot of those courses available, as well as the fall. Typically, we have never in the past been going to the fall event. However, depending upon which core courses or elective courses are needed, but it is definitely something I think worthy more than just having an MML council rep go to. I think all council members can really get a lot of good value from the MML.
I'm not opposed to people going.
Just wanted to mention.
Understood.
And I think, I think exactly the opposite from Councilperson Johnson. If I paid for it, I would go. I would go to the courses. I wouldn't shirk on them. Whereas if the town pays for it, secrets might be looking pretty good. Certainly better than the Academy of Excellence, with all due respect to that. Well, I'm outvoted, it sounds like. You're
Yeah, you're outvoted.
all
Sorry.
right. That's fine. That's okay.
All right, so just a quick review of A10. We are going to reduce the salaries back to the original 22.5, which then will change pension, workman's comp, and FICA, removing the unemployment tax and the telephone communications for the iPads to go to department heads. The only other discussion, if you want to continue, would be the donations and appropriations. If not, we can adjust for next meeting and relook at the changes.
I am for striking the donations. And I'm also for eliminating the volunteer dinner. And gifts. I just don't think, I've served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 4 years, always appreciated the invite, never felt like that's why you do it. I'm not suggesting that's why people do it, but I don't think when people sign up for these things, they're expecting to get invited to dinner. So it's not a lot of money, but stewarding nickels and dimes, I think I'm for taking it out, especially when we seem like we've punted it because of COVID, and I don't think we've gotten any feedback about when's the dinner.
We have.
We have.
And we've gotten feedback of if we're sending out the Centreville dollars, because people like the Centreville dollars.
Yeah, I bet they do.
I feel the same way about the dinner that I felt about the 4th of July, that there are just some things about living in a small town that we should keep doing for our citizenry, especially those that give of their time. Some volunteers give a ton of time to the boards that we have, and no one does it for the gift or the dinner, but I think it's important for us to show our appreciation. This town wouldn't run without those people. So I'm still a maybe on the donations line, but I would want to see the volunteer dinner stay, I think.
Volunteer dinner? Jeff?
I'm for the volunteer dinner.
Volunteer dinner?
I'm for that, and then I am wondering if we can put a pin in that 6,000.
Can we lower to 6,000?
Well, we
can.
were going to bring back the list for you guys to kind of look
We
at.
might lower it all the
Yeah.
way to 0, but we just
Exactly.
want to see the list.
Well, I can't remember what the list was, but yes.
We are
I'll
also
bring the
missing a
list.
council member.
Yes,
I'll have the list for next week's meeting.
yes.
All right, so I'll make all the adjustments in A10. Carolyn will bring the list for the donations, and we can make that at the next meeting.
Dinner is staying,
Yes.
a pin in donations.
Yep.
All right, those are gone.
All right, next budget is A70, which is planning and zoning. Did you cut off my word? This is Carolyn's as well.
So we have the first line item, that's the operations planning expenses, really just if, in the previous years, if we needed to purchase a sign that needs to be posted, there really isn't a whole lot. I think this, what's in there right now is plans that were copied that had to go to, I can't think of the name of them, out on Pennsylvania Avenue, had to have plans printed, was in this line item. If Betty Jean does binders for the new commissioners, that would go in there. Any questions on that?
No, ma'am.
Tree fund, I don't really know what that is.
Do you want me to remove those two lines since there haven't been?
Yes.
Okay.
And can we remove the Council of Five line from before?
Yep, I can. I only usually leave it if there was an expense in the history, but I can remove it.
And the office operations expense, I don't really know what that
Okay,
was or is.
all right.
Planning Commission expense, I'm trying to remember what is in this. I apologize, I do not remember, and we haven't spent anything this year.
Is it items that may be sought by actual planning commission members? I just imagine that a lot of these things
I
are the
can look-
staffing of the group, and then
I can have Ashley pull what the history of what we spent, well, in '21, what we spent. We haven't spent anything in '22, just to double check what that is, because I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head. Board of Appeals expense, this I can tell you in the past was we did get new boards, signs that are posted. We're required to post the property when there is a Board of Appeals hearing. So we didn't have to purchase any this year, so there probably will not be an expense this year for that. Safety, education, and training, nothing. I think that was previously, if someone attended the required training for Planning Commission members and Board of Appeals members, it's free and online now. So dues and subscriptions, that is for I think that is for the membership into the American Planning Association, because we get information from them. Advertising for planning, so that would be their public hearings, the costs for public hearings. Contract services,
This is Chris.
this is Chris Jakubiak.
It's dropping because we've got a
There is a
proposed administrator.
proposal for zoning administrator, so we did decrease that. We kept some in to consult with the new employee and any other consultations.
I think Chris is going to have to hang, I mean, I don't think, as I talked about this with Chip, you know, the vision here was not necessarily to be, you know, cutting Chris free and clear. Right. I mean, we are in the middle of a comprehensive plan redraft that I think we want Chris to see through to the end. So, I mean, we could probably budget less there even if we decide to go with that other person, but.
He did bring that up to me because he felt it was put forward in the planning commission meeting that the town was gonna get rid of him. And I said that was not what the council has informed me of, that there's a transition, that our planning and zoning is gonna be more robust and more Centreville-centric, particularly the code stuff and so forth and so on. But that he still had a role because we were in the middle of a transition, and we just didn't wanna cut bait and turn him off and try and turn somebody on and get him up to speed in a month.
Well, and I'll go further and say I had an opportunity to sit in on that. Obviously, our council president's the official liaison. I just wanted to be a fly on the wall, and there was a public comment at the beginning that I found completely perplexing, that sort of purported that we all felt that way as council members, that he would be finding his way out the door. So I personally went up to him at the end, just so everybody's aware, and I said, I don't speak for the other four, but I will tell you that I have never been present for a meeting where that was discussed. So just, I think there could be some mix of a permanent party person and your expertise as a consultant. I don't know that we're there yet to be able to, so for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, and this is a challenge for me as we go through because like some of this supposes we're going to make a decision later on with personnel that I don't know that I'm prepared to make until we fully discuss it. So
And I think, we wanted to have you see everything, and obviously numbers will adjust based on your decisions.
Yeah, so we'll get a new sort of packet for the
Yeah.
binder every week as we
Yeah, every week.
make adjustments. So, but I agree, I mean, it is, yeah.
Right, just because this one, that's a huge hit, but it's
Yeah.
contingent upon us hiring a whole
Right.
person that's gonna be
Right.
far more expensive than 35 grand.
Right. The next line item is contract services reimbursable, so that is basically Chris's time that I bill back to the developer, whoever they're doing work for. MDIA services, so that is, inspections, we're required to have inspections for building permits.
But that's the middle department inspection
Right,
agency
middle,
from the state.
thank you, Middle
Yes.
Department Inspection Agency, MDIA. Liability insurance is not on there, so I don't know if we can take that off.
Yep, I can take it out.
Again, legal fees, this would be Sharon's time related to planning and zoning issues. And then the next line item is the same, any legal issues that Sharon takes care of that will be billed back. They're billed back to the developer or whoever.
So it's not something we budget for
No,
as a revenue side.
we don't, because we never know what it'll be, and should be,
It's actual cost.
yeah, yeah, actual cost and reimbursed, so.
So, I just want to say something for the record, and I know I've talked to the town manager about this. When you sit through planning commission meetings, and probably other meetings that Sharon is attending or Will is attending on behalf of the town, I know I have scratched my head about, is this a good use of her time? And so, it's certainly a cost issue. It's also just a fundamental burnout issue, right? Of like, yes, I'm getting paid to be here, but it's still not great. And so I guess I want to flag, and like I said, I talked to Chip about this, is just being really mindful of her time. And if we think that the planning commission is just going to kind of wax nostalgic for a session and have a discussion about growth allocations like they did last time, she probably doesn't have to be there for those sorts of things. And I know we've talked about it, just kind of to respect that dollar and her time. And
Could there be, I would just want to safeguard, I agree. First of all, we don't pay her enough hourly to have her out multiple nights a month, staffing meetings that have nothing to do with her. But could there be some sort of safeguard that if the planning commission starts to go down a road that we think she ought to be there, that they've got to table it to the next meeting when she is there, and not let them go off on a tangent that we really should have had an attorney in the room?
I think that, and I think if we look at the agenda and kind of have a discussion, that are not under my auspices, but I'd be happy to reach out.
And we've done that before, like the previous town managers have looked at agendas or what's coming up and said, you know what, Sharon, or Steve, when it was our previous
We're gonna
town
talk about
attorney.
The height of light poles at the prison,
Right,
we don't need you there, but
Right.
if we're gonna talk about what's entailed in a growth allocation decision and what their responsibilities are with that, that might be.
and the same for council meetings. If there's not really any resolutions or ordinances that Sharon really should be there for, or discussions that the town attorney should be there for, then, we just let her know that she doesn't need to come. And she's fine with not attending, a meeting.
likewise.
On a weekend, on a weeknight.
So I guess just before we leave this topic, it's tough because we're not breaking it out. Like this number, this $8,000 number seems low to me, I guess associated with planning commission meetings. So it's possible that some of that is being rolled into A92? Or do we think she's,
It may look low this year, it may look low this year because a lot of what is in here really is reimbursable.
okay.
So if it is just a straight planning commission meeting, the town will just pay for that. There has been a lot of meetings where Sharon's attended that are with developers or related to other,
I mean, we've been reimbursed more than we've spent.
right.
And it could be just crossing of fiscal years, possibly.
Yeah,
Once we
yeah.
close out one, we have to.
Okay. We don't need to bog down anymore.
Lodging, food, and travel, That was, it's just, what I've been putting is if, like, for MML, chips going to MML, I'll just take $200 out of, because the town manager is considered the zoning administrator, I just take $200 and put towards the MML, you know, and that's what I've done the last few years.
All right, so overview of A70 planning and zoning. I'll be removing the 3 lines with no activity. Ashley will bring a history for the planning commission expense next week. Any other questions or changes before we move on? All right, next department is A81 municipal buildings, which is KIPS.
Not mine.
What's your next?
I know I am.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Of course, you know the 81 account is for the building next door here and the parking lot behind it and everything. You don't see much in the way of changes with the exception of the property tax, the first line item there. That's based on the valuation of the property. So, the contract services, and I'm not exactly sure what was, oh, she left.
Yeah, she just ran to the restroom real quick. She'll be right back.
Okay. Because there's 2 contract services there, I'm not exactly sure why we have that other line item there. The second line item definitely pertains to this building and the property manager taking care of it, those sort of things. That other contract services may have been for certain types of repairs or upgrades, that kind of thing to it. But I'll wait for her to get back before even.
We pay property taxes on a building we own?
Yes, because we receive an income for it. Yeah. Same thing, I think the
For the wharf.
we pay taxes for
The
too.
wharf building.
Any part that we rent, anything
Yeah.
that's rented, we have to pay tax on.
Karen, I was talking about the contract services.
Yeah, so which, we'll need to add a $5,000 to the 74400001 or the 105N?
The first one I was talking about there, the 00.
Not sure what the difference between the two is.
Oh.
I don't remember what,
I can have Ashley pull the expense for the plain zeros to see what was coded there.
yeah,
And
because I
if,
can't.
it could be something where that looks like a management fee, Ash. So it may be one that just needs to move, but we can check and then.
Okay.
Well, there's nothing in it for 23.
Right,
No, and that's what I think. 1,100 is the exact monthly management fee for the property management company. So I don't know if I forgot to put 105N on my coding maybe, but we can check.
that the only other thing I can think, we may have had a line there for engineering and such for when we were, when we have to redevelop the parking in the back as part of the PWA for the county courthouse and everything, so that could be. The parking, the revolving loan, again, there's nothing there if you want,
Yep, I'll get rid of that.
we can take that out. Okay, electricity and supply, that's because there is a single service there that takes care of things such as outside lighting, things that pertain to the entire building, not just a particular tenant or anything like that. So, the heating, there is a boiler in there, so, requires fuel. That's what that line is. The water and sewer service
So the water and sewer service is, we don't pay the water and sewer bill for 105 North Liberty. The tenants don't pay that bill. Essentially, it's supposed to be covered within the rent that they pay. But I always put the annual expense in here, just so you guys are able to see what the annual cost for water and sewer is for that building.
And the next one is repair and maintenance. You can see in the past what we've had to spend. We're kind of played catch up with it. A lot of the old HVAC units in there were at the end of life. We should have them caught up pretty well now. Like you can see that we haven't spent much out of it so far this year. But again, we're not into the cooling season yet, so. And the liability insurance.
That's just a 5% increase as we don't have new rates yet. So I just did a 5% cushion to cover.
Your debt service reflects that we paid it off.
Correct. We used the CD. Yep. The CD that was earning less interest than we were paying in interest on the loan.
I just have a sort of bottom line question on this page. It won't take long. And if this is something that you don't feel comfortable answering right now, I get it. But if we were to take all of these expenses and roll them up and then compare that with the revenue that we're getting from the tenants, do you all feel confident that, I've seen some of the P&Ls, but that this lines up in a way that if you were to take each of these rows, we're not paying an exorbitant amount of water and sewer versus what they are actually being charged as a portion of their rent? Okay. I just wanted to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And essentially, to date, I've tracked it for about 3 or 4 years. We have taken in more than we have spent out when it comes to this building. All right, so I'll remove the park line. Were there any changes made while I was out? Okay. All right, next department
Those
is
costs are what they are, right? I mean, nothing we can do about it.
A92 administration, and this is Carolyn's.
So before we move on, so from 105 North Liberty, we are contractually obligated to own that building, right?
For the PWA.
Per the PWA, we're contractually obligated to own a piece of property
To provide parking
at
for the
some,
courthouse.
at some point. Yeah.
And so at some point, how many spots are there now?
If I had to tell you, and I'm sorry, I don't have it.
5 right now.
Yeah, it's about 25 right now.
Not associated with the tenant parking?
No, that's total.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of parking there for the courthouse, which is the intended purpose of owning the land.
Well, the intent, it also is not all parking yet. The
Right.
plan is to take everything behind that building and turn it into parking. For that, if I remember correct, because it's been several years since we did it, we're in the neighborhood of 60, 70 parking spaces there.
Okay, but it's not part of the vision that we raise the building to then put in like a parking garage. That's not part of your thinking.
No,
But potentially,
a parking garage was never a thought.
Okay.
There was a thought, the initial purchase of it was if we had to, for more spaces, you could always do away with the
Right.
building. But that was never the ultimate goal with that. The ultimate goal was we could get enough parking out of the back of it to make it work. But if we had to, you could do that to the building.
There's a lot of unpaved land back there still.
Yes.
is 105 North Liberty a potential, the bones of a potential new municipal building?
No. I'm not.
I had the same question.
Me too.
And I'll tell you the reason why. Because of the way that the building's built, the way that the apartments are structured in it and everything, I don't think you would be able, it's not like you could go in there and just gut and have 4 walls and start.
You
with
couldn't
plastic.
re-engineer the space.
I don't think it's possible for the way that that building's built and it's been added on to and everything.
You have to go, you can't go in the front door to get to every apartment in the building. You have some doors and some apartments and stairs that wind around, and it's an interesting layout, let's put it that way.
But we'll get to this at some point, but do we know what the sort of delta, the revenue, net revenue is for the building?
I think over 5 years, our delta is around 50,000
A year
altogether.
But that counted when you were paying debt service, right? So
correct.
it's much
Correct.
better now.
Could be
Yeah.
higher now. Yeah.
That $40,000 annual payment, we no longer make. And each year, the county portion goes up a few percent.
And so the public works agreement is that we will provide parking to the courthouse sometime uncertain?
And at the time that we had to make a move and find something that was by far the cheapest piece of property that was available within the business square here of the town.
So that, the distance requirement in proximity to the new courthouse
Yes, it
is the
meant
town
that
square,
also.
like the
When you're
option to
looking
go
into
further
that
is not.
option, that it's within walking distance, and I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head how many.
That's fine.
Feet, but yes.
Okay.
There was several pieces of property that we looked at, priced out, and they were just unrealistic, so.
Any other questions on North Liberty? So if we could on 892, can we just go through the big changes? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No objection.
Okay.
Additional explanations.
Yeah, I better look at some of them, because some of them I don't know what they are. All right. So the $300 increase for special events, that is, we included additional money that could be put towards First Friday. Salaries, that is the increase, which includes the proposed positions. So that may change based on, what's that?
How many new positions is included in there? Two?
That includes
Admin, grant writer, zoning administrator, and HR assistant.
4, yes.
And
That
I'm
includes
prepared
4.
to cut both the HR assistant and the admin
And then
assistant.
What is the parenthetical to? I'm sorry, I cut you off, Chip.
Oh, it just tells you what line above it matches. So if you look,
almost like superscript.
yeah, if you look
you
on
know,
the right
the
side of
notations.
it.
At the very last page, you'll see
That goes with
those 1, 2, 3, they.
Oh, it's like
Of course.
it's a footnote.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
it's a
get it.
footnote.
Those weren't in prior budgets, and I thought it'd be easier to try and
I get you.
figure out what the comment correlated to.
So if you're looking in the future and we're not around, you can kind of see where it goes.
I don't look at this when you're not around, Karen. Sorry.
Can we go back real quick, just because I wasn't sure if I heard correctly, the amount that you said, like for First Fridays, was which line item?
That one, special
That one,
events.
the
Special
second line?
events,
So just footnote, and Ashley, hopefully you'll support me in this, I think our intent has continued to be that that would be a self-sustainable event, and I know, you know, your opinion, and I don't disagree with it, is one that that's an event worthy of investing in time, but I think to the extent that we get the Legacy Foundation-driven Centreville Strong Group to really take ownership of some fundraising efforts. My vision personally, hopefully we're all on the same page, would be that that would be reimbursable. So if.
I think we could just delete it, frankly, and run it through the Legacy Foundation, because at this
Yeah.
point, we don't charge anyone to participate, which would be the first step, in my opinion, to charge vendors to participate, and then go from there. Our expenses are only the music at this point, and the Legacy Foundation's content.
And I'm thinking more sort of down the road, if we get to a point where there's a relatively substantial law enforcement footprint,
Yeah.
public works, that it would be understood, because our intent with the event has been that it would have a, net zero impact. So if staffing time was needed, then we would be keeping track of that, anticipating that, and then have it be reimbursable to the town.
So are you saying that the 300 shouldn't be there, or I just want
I think it shouldn't be there.
to, okay, all right,
Yeah, I'm okay with it coming out too.
all right.
Okay. Let's see. Karen, you might want to explain the rest, the next group of those, because I'm,
So, in previous years, I broke out steps and COLA, the salary studies, career development, so you could see it separately. This year, we rolled up, this proposed budget is already inclusive of a step which was discussed, and so what you'll see is the salaries include step, and then the 4213 is our end of service payout line, which was the 0.5% recommendation I showed in the previous sheet. Pension expense is the percentage of salary, 7.4, Crystal? Yes. 7.4% this year, it's automatic calculation. Health insurance, we discussed. Yeah, that was the 9.6 earlier.
Before we go any further,
Oh, sorry.
so on the end of study payout, end of duty, yes, thank you. Didn't we just approve $13,000?
Yes, but this is the A92's portion.
Okay.
So I just try to break it up by department in case there's different
I gotcha.
places where people leave. So that's this portion, but overall, it'll be,
the 13,000.
Can we go back up to salaries real quick for those proposed positions? So previously, we had talked about the grant writer being a contract for services. Has that changed?
no, that is inclusive of 20, it's 28,000, it's no benefits, it's so many hours per quarter on a, did we go with $30?
Isn't this a 1099 though? Or is this a W-2? I was under the impression we were doing a 1099.
I still put it inclusive in the salary line, just so we could see the full picture, but I could remove it.
I'd like to see them separately, things like economic development manager, anything that's not a salaried position, I would not like to see under salaries.
Okay,
personally.
I can add a line.
It's a contract
under-
for services, like
Yeah.
grant writer or
I could
economic
move that to
development.
her.
Okay, we can break that out in one line, or do you want for each?
one line is fine with
Okay,
me.
super.
but
So I
don't know
could
how yours
move
feels.
it to Carolyn's 7440 contract services line.
Check.
Or what we could do, sorry, because we used to have when we first started with the economic development manager, our first one, we had it under contract services. And then we wanted to say, okay, how much are we really spending? Not that we can't pull the checks for that person, but to be able to look and see how much we're actually spending on that position. We ended up splitting it out to its own line item.
I could
And
do
now
a
it's its own,
GRNT.
you could do I say split it out to its own contract services and then another for the GR.
I'll just give it GRNT.
Yeah.
Or something like that, and then we'll have it.
Just so
on
we
its
can
own line.
track to see how much,
Okay.
It's easier to look at that way.
Okay.
All right, any more, hold on, let me see. So, payroll taxes is also another one that's based on whatever the salary is, it's a formula built in. So some of those, the pension, the salary, the health insurance, those things are based on a calculation of. All right, Carolyn, back to you.
Am I at safety, education, and
Yes.
training now?
Yep.
Okay, safety, yeah. So that is if there's any trainings, like Norman and Betty Jean want to go to, or just if there happens to be an online training that does cost something, that comes out of there. Employee expense is typically where we have done the employee breakfast at Christmas time has come out of here. It used to be that A92 covered it for all employees, and it was cheap enough that I could do that. 2 years ago, I think it was, it increased, and I said to Kip and the police department, I need help paying this bill because I don't have enough in my line item. So then we kind of split it out among the departments. Karen has simplified back and just added a little more to my line item. and taken out of the police departments and public works line items, so it's just more streamlined. The payroll taxes and are
that's
gonna,
all.
there, it's all based on the salary, the estimated salary. Dues and subscriptions, so that is, I have Maryland Municipal Clerks Association dues, Crystal's
Sure.
SHRM dues, and I don't remember what other dues and subscriptions come out of there. I'd have to look at the actual thing. Advertising. Oh, increases, I'm sorry, I'm not doing each one, okay. So the next is the accounting and audit fees, Karen.
That's just based on, it's a small, like 2.8% increase per year, still way under what a lot of the other.
And we're required to do the single audit for the ARPA funds this year, so she put in a little bit more for that as well.
Same firm auditing the ARPA funds?
Yes.
We got to do that till it's off the books?
As long as we have or spend $750,000 in federal funds each year. So as long, each year that we're spending at least that much, we'll have that single audit on top of.
Is that different for municipalities and other organizations that spend federal funds? Because I manage $54 million of federal funds at work, and it's the year we get it committed,
Yeah.
not the year we spend it.
I wasn't aware of it myself until we had the ARPA webinars, and they just started discussing it.
That
as
might
far
be new
as-
for ARPA then.
Yeah, it was in the interim final rule. There's a discussion about it in there, and then they brought it up in the webinar. So then I talked with our auditor, and he said, yes, with governments and federally funded money, anything $750,000 and above spent or received has to have a single audit, independent of your financial statement audit.
Federal government's gonna be auditing all this COVID relief until the end of time, but okay. I wish them well.
The repairs and maintenance vehicle, we don't have a vehicle for the town manager anymore, so we took those expenses off.
Sell that vehicle?
We moved that vehicle over to the police department. We are reengaging, and I don't want to get into Chief's Lane too far, but the Queen Anne's County Drug Task Force, and be able to use that vehicle for that. But I don't need a vehicle to go back and forth to work.
Appreciate that.
Chip's not taking anything from us in benefits.
Dental.
Dental.
It's a steal.
Conventions, meetings, lodging, and travel, we increased it, and that may change. That is going to depend on the council's decision of a zoning administrator or not, so we just included an additional amount for them. And liability insurance,
We will be moving to 000. Ashley and I already had the conversation. So that is the cost for the general fund piece, which includes streets, police department, but Ashley and I will create a general fund line that's not attached to one department to show the expense. We have had the promise.
yes. And that is all for 892.
So what you see below at the bottom where you see the allocation of costs, just a quick overview. There are a few salaried employees that are in the general fund that are, their entire salary is paid for from the general fund, but many of their duties fall under the enterprise fund scope. So we take a percentage each year, and the expense we take from general fund and put it into the enterprise fund. So that's what you'll see. The negative you'll see in A92 and C11, and then you'll see the positive charge in C21 and C24 further in the budget.
Do you want to talk about these proposed positions? Are we tabling that until we have full council, or?
Yeah, let's maybe wait till we have Shelby back.
All right, so just real quick overview. I'm removing the 300 from special events for the first Friday. I will break out the grant writer in a contract services line separate so it is visible easily. And that's all I have on A92. Are there any other? All right, next department, page 12 would be the police department. Chief? Did you want to go along the same principle and big increases outside,
Yeah, I think anything over $1,000 would be fine,
Okay,
but unless, I mean, I'm just one person here, so.
That's fine with me.
Well, that should make things fairly easily then. Some of these I'll defer to Karen on as far as,
yeah, the same, the pension, the payroll tax, the health insurance, the FICA, those are based on your health insurance approval and percentages of the salary. So as the salary changes, those figures could change as well.
So like that health insurance number is inclusive of the proposed positions.
Correct. So, you know, if those changes were made, that would adjust, yep.
so I'll skip down then to page 12, B10, 7150, uniforms, clothing. That 20,000 that we had asked for in FY22 was to provide the training utility uniforms and also to provide members of the department with the Class A dress uniforms. I would be amicable to dropping that number down to 15,000, considering those items have been purchased.
And just one comment really quick. The salaries are inclusive of 2 vacant positions and 2 promotions.
Correct.
Okay?
Vacant or proposed?
Proposed.
Sorry, my apologies. And then you will also notice that change in the pension expense cost, this will be the first year of the LEOPS payment. Sorry, Chief, I just wanted to
That's okay.
mention
I
those.
appreciate that.
Can we talk a little bit about, so you have 2 new officers here,
Pardon me?
2 new officers proposed?
Correct.
What did we estimate the annual exposure on LEOPS was going to be when we agreed to do that? Does anybody currently in the room remember what that number was? Because it doesn't feel like it was this number.
I mean, percentage-wise of the
343,656, that's just,
So what it is, right, each year the percentage base changes, LEOPS went up to 34.2%. This number is also based on 34% of salary. So if there's other adjustments made to the salary, this could increase, decrease as well. But this is also inclusive of the credit that we get annually for 25 years for what we had already in the regular state pension. So this particular fiscal year, 34.2% is the LEOPS. 36, sorry. And that's 36% of this salary. So if that number changes, thus would,
but this 343 number is inclusive of 2 additional officers.
correct.
This entire budget, as presented right now, is in the deficit to what extent?
General fund is 402,218.
Okay.
Can we just briefly, I know we have a lot to cover, talk about what the LEOPS number could look like over the next several years? Forget the total amount of salaries, just as a percentage. What's the evolution of that? What dynamics affect that? If there is a simple answer, and if not, we can come back to it, but.
The big, I mean, you know, when Crystal started the process, it was pretty much stated that 34% would probably be a consistent number. Chief, is that?
Yes.
So, you know, it's always going to be a percentage of salary, but I would say you can always bet on at least 34%. This year, it just happened to be a little higher. We do get the $28,000 credit, and Chief's salary, or Chief's pension normal budget is $60,000. So if you take that and you take the 28,000, you know, 90,000 is essentially was in the budget before. But
It would help me to understand, given these projections, the full freight of what 2 additional officers would cost.
so
Like with
inclusive of benefits,
inclusive of everything.
it's 100,000 per officer, and of that 100,000, the pension for each one would be 36,200.
In addition to the 100,000. So
Yeah, so you
it's
said the total
130.
number.
Oh,
It's
FICA,
136, yeah, the total number.
probably,
Crystal, you got a comment?
I think it's 106, 127 is the number, I believe.
106,
That
127.
Yeah, that's inclusive.
Of the pension?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And health and everything?
Yes.
That's
And
the
that's
gold
estimating at the
benefits
high end of
package.
that.
That's with the highest max of the benefits.
Yeah, that's, if they come in, they've got a family, they're getting a family, that's,
Okay, everything,
That's-
all in.
that's top end. Top
Yeah,
end,
that's a
not-
salary of 52, I forget exactly what.
52,880.
Okay.
That's a certified officer with more than 2 years of experience.
Right.
And that salary obviously would drop if we were to send someone to the police academy or less than that experience.
So I'm curious if part of the rationale behind the increase has anything to do with what we're all intimately aware of as we watch the news and the tragic things that have happened in other municipalities, the new regulations for law enforcement accountability, just things like that, Chief. Does that flavor this?
It certainly does, and I mean, I've prepared a narrative to support my request for those officers, and that would also ask council to support my request to promote to existing officers to a supervisory rank. And so I would be happy to offer that now, or when Ann and I is here, I can certainly do it then.
I think we hold off until then.
If we're gonna hold off on salary and
Yeah,
employee.
Yeah.
We should have
And
full
I-
council here.
And I, for one, just, if everybody's okay with this, I feel like when we look outside the PD right now, we have a real good sense of the state of the world in public works, within HR, and sort of the view of admin. So I don't know how you've written it, but if it could be kind of like a law enforcement department, state of affairs, state of the police department.
It's quite inclusive. I don't
Got
think
it.
you'll be disappointed.
Chief, so if you want to send me that, I can put it in the next packet directly behind your B10 budget so that it's easily.
Make it very explanatory, not as long as what Eric would write.
I'll let Ashley say that.
Hole punch for your binders. Karen?
And can I just make a comment too, just from a benefit standpoint?
Oh, this is for her.
That's
Just one.
very huge for law
Rest for
enforcement.
you guys.
Just coming from, the county, when I worked for them, and just,
It's a huge part of the recruitment.
it is a huge part of recruitment. It's a huge benefit, and huge incentive, for that, because, when you're looking at a LEOPS retirement, I know years ago it used to be at 20 years, but even with a 25-year plan, it's for the level of duties, obviously, compared to the employee pension.
Yeah, we have to be here for 99 years.
Well, no, it's a combination of years of
Salt
service
mines.
and age, right?
Yes, that equals 99.
Has
I
to
just
equal,
have to be
no,
here
has
for
to equal
99 years.
90.
So I will
but-
say essentially, Chief and I, when we went through his budget, there were very few lines that had increases based on his expectation of asking for 2 new officers and the LEOPS pension. The only big increase I recall is the gas, which with the inflation, we increased everybody's gas line based on the cost of gas. So I will say that.
I mean, the elephant in the room, right, is LEOPS had to be done. There was no question. I'm proud to have voted for that and wouldn't change my vote. But the elephant in the room is it makes it more expensive to expand the police department.
So I would say this, and I've talked to the chief, that as far as hiring goes, and I know Shelby's not here, the admin, the HR assistant, I would like to remove from the budget. I am in favor of the two promotions for the police department, but build in the new hires in our 5-year plan. But I want to say this, and this is important. CPD and DPW are very different in that what chief has to deal with is operational cost, or almost all of his cost. It's operations, it's day-to-day health and safety, whereas DPW, a lot of that is capital infrastructure cost that we need there. And what I don't want to see as we move forward is that we allow the kind of degradation in our human capital and our police department that we allowed in DPW, so that we end up at some point in time trying to repair our police department. When we look at the comparisons and what LEOPS and the benefit is, I think Queen Anne's County right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is down about 18 officers. So we are in a very good position where we are able to fully man our police force, whereas other police forces locally are struggling to keep personnel.
And I just got to ask the indulgence of my fellow council members here to suspend judgment on at least a consideration after having reviewed this document. I don't want to see us penalize any potential needs for consideration because of how much that number changed for LEOPS. Now, it would also help me to understand what all goes into that, and to your point, you know, you said at the outset that number is just north of what you thought it was going to be. I think that's worth, you know, having a better understanding of. But as an area that I come from in emergency management, I have, as I've stated up to this point, and I'll button this up so I don't get on too big of a soapbox, but I have tremendous concern, not under his leadership, but under the dynamics that we're seeing nationwide for accountability of law enforcement, that we have the right mix of people managing those shifts day to day. So I'd like to dive into this, you know, outside of this session, and if we can suspend judgment on that, pending some additional time to look at that and then to talk to you directly and factoring in your advice too.
Well, you know, to complement what I just said is we start doing things. If we look at, for instance, if we pay off the 2012 bond, then you're looking at $181,000 that goes back into the general fund that would be going into those payments, plus $350,000 totally saved over the life of that thing. When you do something like that, that's going to inject that money back in. That may pay for 2 police officers or pay for an officer and an admin or things of that nature. So as we go through the budget, there are going to be things you may want to revisit as numbers become more apparent to you from other departments.
And if we don't have the money, then, you know, it is what it is as we bake in all of this. And I think there's a scenario where we would consider it a nice to have and we can't afford it, and there may be a scenario where it's a need to have and we can't afford it. So that's the part that I want to, you know, continue to look at.
For instance, the I&I study, infiltration and infusion. We budgeted $150,000 for that, and then we did the one, and that was $35,000, and talked to the contractor and said, how much for all 3? Let's stop tiptoeing around this. And we extrapolated out $35,000 for one, $105,000 for all 3. The actual bill is going to come back at $89,900. So that's $60,000 we can bring forward, so we can say, okay, instead of putting $30,000 for more concrete and sidewalk repair in '23, let's just move that money over and do more this year. The PER, the preliminary engineering review for our water treatment plants, which is our drinking water, can we bring that forward on that money? And there's ways that it'll be shifting as we go through the budget, that there are savings, that you guys will be able to revisit things and say, hey, that's a one-off that we can kill with the existing funds and not have to fund next year.
Chief, I appreciate this memo. I'm a visual learner. Doing this like this is extremely difficult for me. So having something to read is great. I'm sorry.
Well, I think it gives council an opportunity too, not to just hear my words, but also to present you with some research and some suggestions and some options, as you see, beginning on page 2 with the specific to the personnel request. And I think I summarize it towards the end on page 5 by providing council with several different options to consider. So I appreciate your indulgence on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say to the point, you know, there's been lots of points made here. You know, we all need to be mindful, and we probably are, that piecing together the funding to get you 1 year of this stuff does not answer the out year question of how do you sustainably afford it after you've made all these changes to afford it the first year. I mean, these are sustainable costs. We don't want to be in the habit of cutting people free and clear because of budget restrictions. I don't want to be in that position, I'll say. So, you know, I mean, what we can afford, what we need, what we want, this budget is $400,000 in the red as currently presented. So, you know, there's going to have to be cuts made, or we are going to have to make some different decisions about taxes, or, you know, there are other ways to do this, but sustainability, in my view, is important. And the percentage of the overall town budget that's dedicated to the police, I think is a concern. I don't hear from very many people about budget issues, but, you know, this is the one thing, sort of the percentage of the overall town budget that's dedicated to the police department is something I've heard about. I'm not going to say it's been a lot of people, but it's something I've heard about. So just throwing that out there. You know, we've given the police department everything, I think, you know, pretty much within reason that you've asked for. And, you know, I think you'll find no bigger champion for what you guys are doing down there than me. But, you know, these are just tough decisions, right?
Well, and you just said something that I would like to harp on, and that would be, and Chip and I had this conversation, and my understanding is this is something that several of us have talked about. I really would like, in parallel to this process for this fiscal year budget that we're looking at, to the point about sustainability, to get to a point where we have a really solid formula that says if you want to do a development in this town, then if it's this square footage and this many residents, et cetera, then as that number gets fed into a formula, it pushes out, then when we reach this particular threshold, that's an additional law enforcement officer. That's an additional person to plow snow. So I am all for the sustainability piece, just to stress that.
Well, that is the county's APFO facility, or APFO law, which is the towns are exempted from.
Right.
So you can, you know, and this is something that actually sticks in my craw a little bit, is you can build a 130-unit development right across the street from an overcrowded elementary school,
Yeah.
and you're not on the hook for providing any of that capacity. So talking about, there is a $14,000 connection fee. Councilperson Kaiser has said in previous meetings, I think that's insufficient. I have said that that's insufficient as well, but that's just wastewater. That's not police. That's not public work. I mean, it's not really the maintenance of the system that we're not accounting for. And that's why, you know, I think this concept of growth as a revenue generator is like a dog chasing its tail. You know,
I totally
never.
Are there neighboring
catches
municipalities that charge a public safety impact fee? I know it's super common across the bridge in Prince George's County. The public safety impact fee is massive to build. Could we maybe try to find out Chestertown, Denton, if they've got a public safety impact fee for new development? Because we let more houses in, we let a Y in, we got a bigger jail,
GTI.
you know? Yeah.
Well, and y'all are going to hear me bring it up again. When I presented that chart at our last meeting that showed our population growth as our tax rate sort of was down and then flat, I think it's helpful as we go through some of these exercises to overlay what our staffing has been. I know Kip and I have talked about that, just for gee whiz value to say, how has the staffing been through this time of, you know, skyrocketing population? And, you know, I don't disagree with anything our council president has said. I think we have to be sustainable, we have to be smart about things, but I am very grateful that what I've asked for up to this point has happened, which is please throw everything in, because we don't want another 105 years of, let's not do that now and hope that we can, you know, make it out of office before that happens. And that's not against anybody in recent history. But it's 105 years that I don't want us to help repeat.
Before you strike the budget, we're going to see a lot of numbers that you're going to be able to make adjustments to. And I think we're going to be happy with the budget at the end of the day. But I'm going to bring up now, because we just talked about the debt.
I was just going to bring that up too.
We're puking out $105 million a year.
105,000.
5,000, sorry.
105 million, whoa.
I was going to say, if that's the case, let's
more money
revisit
I've
that
thought.
salary line item.
I'm talking about what we pay in debt payments,
$1.5 million.
$1.5 million a year in debt payments. That could be, that's operating costs, that could be capital, that's a lot of stuff that we have got to get that elephant off our back.
Here, here.
That's when I say $105 million a year, it's you don't have a problem hiring officers with that. You don't have a problem hiring with DPW. We can do a major street every year. but we have got to get out from under that, and there's more we'll talk about, and I want to,
Yeah, I was just gonna mention too, on the very first sheet, the general summary sheet, we just have, we threw in a portion to pay off early. We can always adjust those numbers if we want to pay off more, depending on how funds look as we get to it. But that is a piece of what you see in the bottom line.
what she talked about at the beginning of the discussion was, rather than that money going into anything else,
Right.
my proposal is to pay off at least one of the 12 bonds, or take a chunk out of it.
Yeah.
So that we can start reducing that and get that out of there, so that, when we put together the 5-year plan for the budget, it will include DPW workers, it will include police officers, it will include looking at what vehicles and things we need, but we got to move on that debt hard, in my opinion.
Yes.
So I ran on this in 2020. I couldn't agree anymore. And these, it's one of my great concerns about the wastewater treatment plant, is we are going to, and I think this is a broken process where we have to get so far down this road before we find out what the state's going to pay. And I am concerned, mildly concerned, that we're going to have to, go back to that debt bucket potentially for a full build out of that wastewater treatment plant. And this is a long conversation. There are options. Eric has seen the start of my plan across my whiteboard.
I saw it too.
And actually seen part of it, that there are pieces of revenue, the allocation fees, low, high, that's your call. But rather than use that to balance the budget as has been done, put that in a fund so that grows, so that the next wastewater treatment plant is paid for. The DRRA and exactions from developers, list out our priorities and which ones we want them to take care of for us. Things like we may need if there's some growth, a new water tower, streetlights, force mains across properties, things of this nature, that we have to look at this across the spectrum and not come to you each year and say, okay, $300 here, $1,000 there, that there's a plan and you guys can make moves with purpose.
Can I ask our president for indulgence of just asking if we do have consensus and a majority here, if not all, that we would like to see a debt reduction plan, and we're in support of that? Because I know
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're in Chip and I have really dug into this, so it's definitely something we've been having discussions about.
And
Chip and I, we owe one another a conversation to talk about maybe a presentation at
Yes.
council.
Yeah.
That I'd like to lead about that debt reduction, because it is a priority for me.
We're going to build it out, and, even in the back of this, the capital plan, we're going to change the look of that, rather than Belvedere cost $400,000, but if you go back 3 pages, add $285 for water, wastewater. It's going to be, here's the project, here's the priority, here's the cost. Boom, 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 and in priority order, so that you can see what we need to do and get a sense of what's urgent, what's not, what's important, what's not.
All right, so under B10, essentially at the moment, I just have the reduction in chief to $15,000 for uniforms, clothing. Was that you wanted me to make that adjustment?
Yes.
Okay.
And then,
They'll
Healer-
review your
what's that?
they'll review your budget request, and we can dive into salary.
Yeah, and I
Shelby's
think,
back next week.
I think the only other change, as you had mentioned, was the increase in fuel oil prices.
Yep.
That's it, everything
Most of his stayed
pretty much
baseline.
stayed the same.
All right, any other questions on the police department? All right, I just want to ask at the moment, a lot of times we don't try to dive in to very long budget sessions. Totally up to you if you want to continue for an hour.
What do you say?
I said no.
Anybody else want to call in consent?
Yeah.
I know it's a lot to take in, there's a lot of things within it. Definitely up to you guys if you
I'm
want
okay
to.
hanging in.
All right,
Everybody else?
It is so dry in here, but I will do my best.
I'll regroup and ask again at 8-ish. We'll see how we are. All right, next up, streets department, Kip.
While Kip is coming up,
I have some.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, though.
I just have a question that I think goes across and transcends all the departments. And Kip, you might even know this. With fuel prices going up, is there any chatter out there about municipalities working together, teaming up to buy fuel in bulk? Probably not, but I
You can't
just.
afford gas right now because of the tax
We
holiday.
are looking at like leasing options, electric vehicles, stuff like that. Just, you know, as these prices continue to rise, options for the future.
Right. The way the market is right now, I don't think bulk purchasing is going to make any difference.
And we don't have any unknown oil fields in Centreville that we're.
Because we get our
I hope
fuel
it's my
at
backyard if there is.
Hillside, correct? We don't have our own fuel tank, right?
Yes, we have for DPW, we have our own fuel tanks, diesel and gas. I will tell you, the diesel tank is the off-road diesel for the equipment. So the diesel trucks we do buy
From Hillside.
from Hills,
or where?
or one of the vendors, or one of the stations in town. But some of the trucks, like the water and wastewater staff, they get it from whether it's Hillside or, Sitco or Acme. But we've tried in the past, we changed, and Karen can probably tell you better than I can, we changed, like the credit card that we used to purchase it, and we were supposed to get a big break for so many months.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
It was 6 months, and then after the 6 months, it wasn't worth having the extra card and use this card this time, so we do have one gas card now. All departments have the card. Are there any, do we get any benefit from the card we currently use? So there is like cash or reward, okay.
Deduction that comes off of the bill.
So at least we are getting something for the
I mean,
extremely.
it's good to know.
It ranges anywhere from like $30 to $50 each month.
Not a lot, but that's a tank, half a tank of gas for the police trucks.
2 gallons any day.
Yeah.
Drive from pump
Real
3 to
quick.
pump 4.
Real quick on that note, when we get to the 5-year capital plan, you'll see that I put a request in there for a new fueling station at the DPW shop where the plan is to put large enough tanks in there, card activated, so that everybody goes there. Then we could look at piggybacking on purchasing with the county or something
Yeah,
like
because then you can
that.
lock in that fuel price,
Yeah.
like fuel or gas price too, instead of
Right.
going to a regular
But-
gas. Yeah.
I would like to see that.
But for no larger than our tanks are right now, and
Yeah.
we're not set up for
Yeah.
it, to me, it's not worth it until we put the money all in to make a decent
Fair enough.
setup for it.
And that's something where, I don't want to throw a rock at this, but if we're going to consider putting tanks in the ground and something in that line, can't have that discussion if you're not talking about, in the background at least, a municipal building at some point where the DPW yard would be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think we need to get real if we're talking about long range, that electric vehicles are gonna replace some of the fleet
So-
as we go over time.
Karen and Chief and I have talked about this a great deal and looking at a leasing program. Chief has been trying to get vehicles. How long did it take us to get to 22? We're just getting one.
We had our Ford Explorer that we ordered the first week of July last year was delivered today.
So that, and the feeling is that the, rental car companies and things that are buying bulk are getting these things first rather than the onesie twosies from small municipalities. And looking at that, you can't, and Chief and I discussed this at length, you can't even get a hybrid vehicle because they're so in demand that you literally cannot find them. And with the stuff going on overseas, the parts to make the batteries are becoming harder to get. So looking at that leasing option, we're hoping will A, get us the vehicles quicker, B, prevent staff from spending time trying to find quotes and find vehicles, and C, get a state-of-the-art fleet that is on a replenishment program and thus not worrying about it, and ideally at a savings in cost.
Yeah, totally less maintenance, those kind of things would totally add up.
That supports, as I continue to ask for a 20 to 50 year capital investment forecast, which sounds crazy, but when you start going out that far, it's a lot easier to, I'm being serious here. It's a lot easier to say, what's an objective that we can just throw against the wall? Do we want to try in the next 30 years to have a certain percentage of our vehicles electric?
I think in the next 30 years, it's not going to be up to us.
I would agree with you. So we should start thinking about that.
Well, you look at that, you look at the charging stations, you look at the refresh rates. I mean, right now, if we say in 3 years we're going to have our wastewater treatment plant complete, we know in 20 years we need another one. There are certain things that we can extrapolate out in a template.
Yep.
And backfill in with secondary and tertiary issues.
Right on. I concur.
I concur also.
I have concurrence.
You sure you guys can hang in there?
Is it still a consensus with you guys to only enhance, well, maybe that's not the right word, but 1,000 or above if you want to see, or do you want them to go line by?
No,
Okay.
let's just do
I've moved on from that.
big.
Got to, you did.
I will tell you the
Sounded like a good idea at
salaries.
the time.
The salaries are inclusive of one new position and then vacancies at a higher grade.
Yeah, and it's actually switching one position from part-time to full-time. It's also, and you'll see it reflected also down in career development on 7010. We're making a push to do whatever we can to get staff that, new hires that are
With
not
skills.
entry level.
As I mentioned at the prior town council meeting, that our average run is 6 months for a person. Queen Anne's County has 2 vacancies out for what I'll call utility worker 1. It's $5,000 higher than what we pay our base utility worker 1. Our ideal would be to hire at least at a level 3, and that gets us people with experience that we can ask more of, get more out of, and not have to invest in that training that we have talked about before. The second part of that goes to the 5-year plan with where we want to go with DPW and doing our own pipe bursting and paying more for our own people than what we're paying for contractors. For instance, the pipe burst in front of Hardee's cost us $6,000. That's $1,000 an hour. That's an expensive fix. But if we've got our own people, your salaries alone are a lot cheaper.
We can do better.
Chip, you mentioned at the outset you were prepared to scrub 2 of the proposed hires. What were those?
The admin and the HR assistant
In A92.
in A92.
So none of those carry into other budget lines?
Correct.
And it, quite frankly, may be that we have to scrub the zoning administrator and the grant writer. I don't, when we get to the end of this, I think there's going to be some things you want to revisit in terms of, particularly personnel. And my feeling is that the 6 proposed positions across all departments are worthy of your consideration. And I think we can, at the end of the day, we should be able to find the money or possibly find the money, and that you can make that decision then.
Okay?
Are the 6 positions across all departments with their benefits and taxes somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000?
Yes,
Or then.
it's going to be about that. It's set.
Yeah.
So the deficit in this budget is from proposed new hires, essentially.
Largely. Yes.
Good to know.
Out of curiosity, has anybody out there, I'm looking at you, Ashley, and you, done kind of a running cumulative total of what we've peeled off tonight?
$14.
I wish it was 6,014.
The mints you just got, that's what we took off.
I'm gonna paint a
$1.75
positive
for
spin
my
and say
account.
we're on the right track.
So, one of the things I do want to emphasize as we go through this, this is an operating budget. This is not capital. We've got about $150,000, that's all, $150,000 in capital investment in this budget, because that's where we're at. And that's the debt.
The general fund summary sheet and the enterprise fund summary sheet also is inclusive of capital requests. You'll see it near the bottom, the total for '23. We really didn't have a lot. We really tried to hone in on what the needs were, and everything else was accentuated further down.
The other thing, a lot of the increases you're going to see are driven by inflation.
Gas hit hard.
It's going, gas, yes, gas, for example, not just the gas, but the parts. The freight is going crazy on equipment and parts that we need to operate. So, those are that's some of the
Cost
big,
of doing business.
yes.
Well, you look at the petroleum issue, the original estimates on Windsor and Belvedere separately were in the $600,000 to $700,000 range. Liquid asphalt has gone up $60 a ton since January. Those things, which could have been done 10 years ago, are now in the $1 million range for those repairs for those streets, for those reconstructions. It's the stuff we have in the ground is not aging fine like wine. It's going to cost us more.
Well, I've brought up in previous council meetings that I do get concerned about increase in headcount. I don't think it's the answer to everything. And so I'd want us to have real strong justification for these proposed positions.
And we're prepared to build them into a 5-year plan.
Okay. Working our way on down here,
We're still on C11, right?
Yes, on C11, pension expense, and this I have to leave to.
They're all mine. Yeah, I
Karen
mean, they're
and-
all based on the salary.
Yeah,
So you could probably go all the way down to safety, education, and training.
okay, safety, education, and training is constant.
There's no increase there.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Only increases after that.
Over 1,000.
Yes.
Over 1,000. Yeah,
So you're
sorry.
looking at the uniform and clothing, and again, this is something somewhat driven by inflation, but we're also trying to put on a new, more professional appearance, getting uniforms for the people, hoping that's another thing that's, we can keep them if we keep them in good uniforms. So, uniform and clothes, the safety training and education, employee expense there. Employee expense also in C11, also in the water and the wastewater, things that are covered in that are also expenses for certifications and stuff. So with us promoting, trying to promote the career ladder and getting our staff to come up to speed, that's going to cost a little bit more. Flip over to page 15. Get in line here, contract services, and your increase of $4,000 there. Once again, this is a cost of doing business. Can't do much about it. Contract services are contract lab fees. I'm sorry, not lab fees, but contract services in C11 is for things like having contract staff come in to help us because we're understaffed or with things that we're not equipped to take care of and everything.
The HUR is the money from the state, and so that number is based on the exact revenue line, so that you'll see that they're the same.
Can we stop? I know it's not an increase, but the sidewalk refurbishment and maintenance. I had asked Sharon this question. I don't think we've gotten an answer yet, but
yeah.
I'd be very curious since the homeowner or business owner, the property owner, is responsible for the sidewalk in front of their frontage. What liability are we assuming by having this line item? Because a sidewalk in front of my house is pretty janky, but I gotta tell you, if the town's gonna pay for it, why would I?
So, good point. Sharon and I have talked about it, and she said the liability shouldn't be there for the town. She said, however,
Even though we're gonna pay for it?
yes, it happened in Easton that there was somebody that went ahead and sued the town, even though it was the property owner's responsibility, and won.
You can sue anyone for anything, but
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason the ordinance is written the way it is, to say it's the property owner's responsibility to try and help keep the
Reduce
town
that
from being
liability.
responsible, to reduce the liability.
I just think if we
but-
have a line item to pay for it, then how do we say, it's not our problem, except for when we decide it's our problem?
Good
So
point.
is there an opportunity to beef up outside of this session, because I'm in agreement, something in the ordinance that sort of
I'm
articulates
saying
that?
zero this out, and, because if we have this funding here, to me, I would think, if I fall, because someone's sidewalk is as screwed up as the one in front of my house, then I'm suing the town, and I'm gonna say, hey, you had 30 grand in the budget, and you spent $338. So
How many
you could have
side-
fixed this and prevented this.
How many sidewalks have we fixed in the last 5 years? Do you know?
A lot of it was underneath, was under the road projects and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, in the past 5 years, it won't be as much as what we're working on right now.
Right.
To have fixed.
But out of this line, like out of this
Right.
Of that line.
sidewalk not related
That-
to a road project.
For what, yes, for what we're working on right now, I'm sorry to say we didn't work on it in the past years as hard as what we're working now to get sidewalks fixed. We actually have, how much was it that's encumbered? in this?
I have to look on my spreadsheet, 70 or 80,000 that wasn't spent.
So
And how do we
finally-
decide what we're gonna fix?
We have we're doing a sidewalk evaluation, or we've done that part of it, which has been something we've been wanting to do for many years now. So we have a contractor that came in, actually went through and evaluated all the sidewalks and marked what could be ground, what needs to be replaced, what can be raised. From that, we can take and price out everything. If we did the whole town, well, I'll put it this way. The first place that we did was the west side of Liberty Street. $30,000 wouldn't even touch what it
Love this
what
budget
it was
item,
going to
but maybe
be.
that's just me.
So,
I don't love this budget
I
item.
don't either, because
so
I'm not opposed to taking it out, and I gotta say, the other end of it that I was actually thinking you were talking about was, we pave a sidewalk, somebody falls on it, and the owner says, well, you all just put that sidewalk in.
Right, nobody fell while I had my orange paint
Janky.
on there.
Yeah.
and that, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do. Believe me, if you drop that, that takes a load off of my department. So,
Are we good dropping the encumbrance as well? We don't want to. And,
I mean, it's just money sitting there under sidewalk repair.
It's a fund balance.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
plan was to execute this before the end of the fiscal year, because it was sitting, and we were like,
Encumbrance.
if we're gonna do it, let's do it, and let's
Yeah.
get it done. So we had the assessment done in preparations for, okay, what's the order we're gonna do these things in? Let's get it done.
And forgive me for not reading every page of this before we got here, but is there some sort of summary of this fund balance where it seems all money goes to die?
So, Chip and I have been working on that, and we think, I do have a spreadsheet that,
Belts.
that kind of shows you the balances. Ashley and I have forecasted 6 months out, and kind of here's where we're left. So, yeah, we do have that. It was a little further down, but yes.
Okay.
I could give you a copy to take home to digest.
okay.
if you- Okay.
Thank you, though.
I know we want to be real careful not to get into too specific of projects tonight, but just since we're talking about sidewalks, out of curiosity, is somewhere baked into this Lawyers Row brick sidewalk as it runs in front of the town hall and the
That's
lawyers'
in the
office?
capital.
I'm just curious.
This is just repairs.
I know, yeah,
That are
exactly.
someone else's problem per the code.
Yeah.
Right. I think we have a majority.
So, are we telling people that the sidewalks are their problem?
have ever since I started here.
So, I mean, so like, they get a letter saying, hey, you gotta fix your sidewalks?
Find out when you buy your house.
I can't say that we've sent letters out like that, but when they call and say, I have a bad spot in my sidewalk in front of my house, they're told by ordinance, it's your responsibility to maintain. Now, here in the past, probably 3 years, we've said, the council's chosen to pick a few each year and make repairs to it. So, I can put you on the list, but that's as far as it goes.
Well, if we start doing letters, I just want to go on record that Councilwoman Kaiser had indicated her sidewalk is janky.
Listen, I spray paint orange on it every Halloween, okay? That's the best I can do. Me and my whole street.
But if you want to start doing letters, that's
What's that address?
Listen, my trash cans are exposed too if you want to make a list.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
that's definitely something we can entertain, but it may take $30,000 worth of postage.
Surely.
I mean,
I'm
you
just,
do get it when you buy
I
your
guess I
house.
do like slip and fall is a huge problem for governments across the country because they tend to just pay it.
Yeah.
And so, you could have something in the ordinance, right, that doesn't make it ironclad right in a court of law or a civil court. So I think we ought to be really good at telling people, because I don't have a sidewalk, so we've never gotten that.
To me, this $30,000 in a lawsuit situation, to me, feels like a further admission of guilt.
What they're going to say to
It feels like saying,
Yeah.
you knew you had problem sidewalks, residents are calling, and you got the money in the budget, and you've just rolled it into the fund balance for God knows how long.
Right.
It's just exposing I agree with that. I agree, so we're good.
Yeah.
Where sidewalks are not ADA compliant, is it the property owner's responsibility to make them ADA compliant, or is that?
Once it's removed, it's supposed to be put back in ADA compliant unless there was lost the words, like a waiver approved
Okay.
of ADA regulations.
But there's no requirement that are the downtown sidewalks, forgive me for not knowing this, are they also the responsibility of whoever they're in front of?
If I remember right, it reads the property owner, so I don't think it,
So they have to plow, and so like Lawyers Row, individuals are out shoveling the front of their building.
Sometimes.
It's not an inexpensive repair for a homeowner. And I have janky sidewalks too, so I'll just,
Actually, it's really janky.
It is.
that a
Keep Bob busy
consensus?
for a couple days in my house.
Yep.
To remove the
Board
30,000.
of- We have consensus on removing this 30K?
Yep.
Here we go.
I'm for it.
All right.
okay. This next item, we were talking about, that's HUR money, highway user revenue, so. Contract tree services, prices have gone up to have tree removal done and that type of thing. Like the tree we had to remove out to the heights, and it's kind of accelerated somewhat. Several different blights are going through right now, so. Other than that, that pretty much covers anything over 1,000.
What are these heating?
The only other increase is the gas, based on the gas cost.
Why is the heating $8,000 under?
Fuel, because
Based on trend, I think.
yeah, it's just based on usage of the
Okay.
previous year.
I see, okay. So same for repair and maintenance?
Repair and maintenance, yes. One thing on the repair and maintenance of the vehicles, we were able to drop that $5,000, and that's definitely because you folks were good enough to us this past year to get new trucks in the street department. So that was very much needed and very much appreciated.
Now, the repairs that we do on our vehicle, who does the repairs on our vehicles? I remember years ago that we used to take it to the county shop. I don't know if they can do that or not anymore.
Not since I've been here. We use a
Maybe
number,
before you started, they used to take it there. And because you can be a vendor and they're a lot cheaper than dealers.
And then they would just bill the
something-
town?
Huh?
And then they would just bill the town?
Yes.
okay.
I don't know if there's something we can look into or not. I
That's
don't
something we
know.
can check with. We use Danny's garage here in town because he's local, but we also have a number of other vendors that we deal with also. So we can look into that.
Okay.
Okay, so consensus on the streets department. The only change thus far is removing the 30,000 from the sidewalk fund. All right. Page 17, I can kind of just give you this one. This is the Goodwill Fire Department. It's the same amount that goes to them every year, unless there's any changes. Is that a negative?
Are you able to at least give us real quick context on what that looks like against the department's actual total budget? Like,
Well, the total budget is, I don't know what it is this year because we haven't done it yet, so, but I know 25,000 of it goes to EMS and 20,000 goes to the fire side. So the amount of calls that we run in the town of Centreville for EMS, we have a paid staff from 7 to 7. And I think we're going to try to increase that to 7 to midnight now. So that's going to be an additional call. So I know that the president was talking about asking for an increase because technically in the charter, I think,
Not this president.
no, the president of the Louisville Fire Company.
let's be clear.
Said,
Not this
well,
president.
but the charter, I do believe the charter says that you have to have police and fire and any EMS. So I know he was talking about it, but I don't know what the amount he wanted to increase it, because it's been the same for I don't know how long. I've been in there for
Years.
17 years and it's been the same, so.
I don't
I've
wanna
been
speak
here
for
11
Council
years, and it's
President
been
Klein,
the
but I think you could increase it by $6,000.
There's your charitable contribution right there, $6,000.
Oh, that's cool.
Increasing staffing based on the number of calls that they're, the uptake.
Well, the majority of our calls are run in the town limits. If you pull the stats for calls, they're run in the 4-1 and 4-2 boxes, which is between Northbrook, it cuts off at, shoot, I don't even know where the cutoff is now. I want to say it's the Centreville Heights all the way to Symphony Village and all in town. So I want to say years ago, it was like 85% of our calls were in the town of Centreville for EMS.
How long has that staffing been like that?
So when it first started, it was from 7 to 5, 5 days a week. Then they increased it 7 to 5, 7 days a week. Then they went 7 to midnight, 7 days a week. But I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, they cut back because it was a money issue. So they cut back to 7 to 7. But now that it's a staffing thing. So if you have to have ALS, so if it's considered a certain type of call, the county's going to take it. But if we have a paramedic, so if we're ALS staff, we have a paramedic, we can take them. So we have a lot more paramedics than we did 4 years ago, so we can take more calls. So now that's why we're not running in the red anymore. So if we break even or make a little bit of money, that'd be good. So
I'd like to make a suggestion that if the Goodwill Fire Company folks come in with a request for any additional funding now, a year from now, 2 years from now, would be awesome to see call volume analysis. And then I'm thinking PD as well, from a public safety, security, EMS, fire,
I will
same
be
thing.
The president, the Goodwill Fire Company president on it, not President Klein on it.
Okay, consensus now, stay the same. All right. Next, page 18 is waste removal. And the only increase here is based on the contract cost. Oh, I'm sorry, Kip, I just took your.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
Exactly.
So the one increase is just based on the cost of the contract.
This for 8 o'clock check-in.
Oh. Right after this. I know, I'm waiting for consensus that C-22 landfill waste removal is okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do
I
a
have
check.
just, I don't want to bog anybody down, but I have asked Chip and Kip to maybe start looking at what it would cost for us to handle our own trash pickup, and maybe buy a truck and because this is a big number, 355.4, it's a big number, and we get a lot of complaints about that service, and for those who sort of sat through those bids we got, you remember, Vice President Keel, that, you know, there was a big delta between Chesapeake and the other two. There, I mean, it was big
Absolutely
money.
huge.
90 grand?
Yeah, and
Hundreds.
so there was no choice to be made. I just think it would be a good idea for us to look into what it would take to just have a municipal truck, maybe with an arm on it, so nobody's got to get out.
That presents its own challenges, because in the town, you have to have people on the ground. The trucks with the arm on it works great if it's someplace where there's no parked vehicles and no chance of a parked vehicle or a vehicle parking in front of them. It doesn't work in a town setting.
Would it work in Symphony and Northbrook?
No, because they park on the street,
Well,
both
then they
places
don't get
also.
They drive with-
I can tell you that we did this probably about 6 years ago, and I'm going to update the numbers for you. But you also have to remember, you can't do it with the staff you have. This is going to have to be a dedicated staff to a new solid waste division. You can't do it with one truck, because if one truck breaks down, somebody's getting phone calls because their trash didn't get picked up.
We're already getting those. We're already getting those.
Yeah, but the thing is, at least we can get them to come back.
Yeah.
If a truck breaks down and we don't have another truck, who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters doesn't pick it up.
I worry too, because
getting
solid
late.
waste is an extremely dangerous job. In terms of staffing that ourselves, the injury and death rates for those people are really high, really, really high.
Just,
Oh, it's gotta be huge. And until Maryland passes a law that requires you to pull over and give a wide berth to a trash truck, they're gonna continue to get injured all the time. It's a liability I don't wanna take on.
How long are we locked in that contract with the current one? Is it-
This is year 2, right?
It's 3 years with it.
It's yes, it's a year contract, but it depends on how you want to approach it. If you want to approach it for poor service and you think, or Sharon thinks we have the ability to get out of it for that, we can.
But then we have to go with the next contractor, which is going to be $100,000 more.
Well, we had them. We had Bates.
Yeah.
It was like a
They
million.
stunk too.
It was like a
did
million.
meet with Dean today from Chesapeake Waste to kind of express displeasure. And he's feeling the impact, because when he does come back and get the trash, they are still going and paying the tipping fee.
Tipping fee, yeah.
And having to pay that. But we said, okay, look, if it's Wednesday, the day is Wednesday. If you pick it up by Thursday, okay, we can understand if there was something missed, somebody brought something out late. Or if the person doesn't call in and it's Friday before they tell us, hey, they missed my stop. All right, well, you're gonna have to get it next week. But we did tell them that, look, when we fine you or we dock it, it's not because you missed a stop here and a stop there. It's because you missed entire streets.
Right.
And there was been times where I get the emails, just gets lit up with,
Tire streets.
Yeah.
Now, the last 2 weeks, we've told them, like, you got 2 weeks going, we want to build on this and keep going. But the other thing we'll have to stress to the citizenry is three things. You can't put a pizza box in your recycling. That's contaminated. It's very particular about what you can and you cannot put in. And Dean did say a lot of municipalities are just stopping recycling entirely because 99% of the people aren't putting things in there. You dump the truck, they say it's contaminated, it's $1,000 to reload the truck and then take it and pay the tipping fee. So we would like to educate the populace on do that because it costs them $75 a ton to dump, $25 a ton to dump for recycling. So they make, I don't want to say they make money, but it's more economical for them, but we've got to do it right. And a lot of people don't know what you can and cannot put in. but that's a challenge.
We'll take that pizza box out of the blue bin tonight.
Didn't we send
And if you put your trash in a plastic bag, so you have a recycle bit, then that plastic bag is then considered contaminant. You can't put the plastic bag in your recycling bin.
However, there are, and I would actually like to know if Chesapeake knows about this or is experienced. There are trash bags for recycle. They're recyclable trash bags.
So usually when you have single stream, any plastic bag is gonna jam their machine, and then somebody's gotta hand sort it, which the cost is exorbitant.
Yeah.
And there are hand sort places on the shore, but it is super costly. So we use leaf bags at my house for our recycling because they're paper. There's definitely options available to you that don't involve plastic bags.
But that leads to another thing, like the paper leaf bags that are supposed to be compostable and everything. The landfill won't let us take them to the landfill because it's paper in the mulchable stuff. So regardless of whether it's in a plastic bag, when I'm talking about leaves and yard debris, whether it's in a plastic bag or one of those compostable paper bags, it still has to be dumped. We can't leave those bags at.
Right now, I'm saying for recycling, for
But
like your recycled plastic, put it in a paper bag.
Right.
You may have already answered this, so I apologize. The differential between the FY '22 and '23, is that the contract differential on fuel expenses?
It's just from year to year, there's a annual increase in it, and it's just the way the contract is.
Okay. So it's on them that fuel is skyrocketing?
Yes, it doesn't make any, there's no fuel surcharge added to it or anything. It's just an annual escalator that they have built in.
Optimal for folks in town would be, put your trash out the night before. If they routinely come at noon to your house and you're putting in at 10, if they have a driver sick and another driver's on that route and he's going by GPS and runs it in the reverse way, they may come at 8 a.m. and your trash isn't out. So put it out the night before, and it should get picked up.
And then the important next step is take the empty containers, I understand, out of the street, back up to where they belong.
And then block them on 3 sides of you.
On a concrete pad. Per code.
All right, so a quick check-in. I will tell you, I think I can get us through the general fund in the next 10 minutes because
Let's do
there
it.
are not many more. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Kip, cut me off if you want. I'm just gonna kind of.
Go for it.
Okay. All right, next, page 19 is the Parks Department. You can see an overall decrease in the budget of $2,400. The only increase of more than 1,000 was for gas based on inflation.
Motion to approve.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All right. Next, page 21 is Main Street. Exact-
Before we move on.
Oh, sorry.
So the frag has been an issue for me. Are we cutting that because there's less of that to do or because we don't have the money?
No, it's because when the county came in and did the dredging of their channel in the Corsica, and we got them to include our slips and everything. The county had to do an agreement that the frag would be put into a eradication program, which meant some of the grant money that was given for the dredging had to go into that too. So the county's paying for the eradication at the wharf, but it doesn't cover the frag that we have down at the captain's wall.
Okay, thank you.
All right, page 21, Main Street, exact same budget as last year. H50 on the next page that's not numbered, my apologies.
There was something I wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm going to make, something I wanted to talk about. Street decorations, this is going to shock maybe a lot of you.
In D10, so you're on page
I'm
19.
back on D10, line number 1. So street decorations, what does this FY '22 budget cover? The proposed $2,500 bucks.
Let me try and get back to it. Street decorations are not only Christmas lights, but it's also, we have flags and some banners that we put out, that kind of stuff. That's what's covered under it. I will tell you that as far as the street decorations, the money that you see spent there was replacing lights and that kind of thing.
So the 2,500 for fiscal '23 is for replacing lights as well?
That, the plan was to try and see about replacing some of the decorations, but it's gotten to the point that it's not only decorations, some of the services to the decorations, and we're trying to work with Delmarva. I've had a hard time getting a return call from them on this fact to see if they're gonna allow for them to be upgraded, or if they're still gonna honor, to allow the decorations on the tree.
But they may not allow decorations on the poles.
They may not. I can't get an answer yet, but,
Working on that too, Kip.
so,
Got contact with them, and she hadn't gotten back to me either.
so,
I would like to see this line item plussed up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
I would like to see,
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah, he said,
Like,
I
I
told you,
can't,
I told you it would.
I am,
I would like to see this line item plussed up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
For
Because-
streets decorations?
Yeah,
D10.
Now, I will
Because
tell you that.
Gotten late.
because I think,
He's going up.
I think
Have alcohol.
even if they are on the light poles on Lawyers Row and on the light poles in front of, Commerce Street Creamery, and I think that would be a nice touch and feel to the town. And I think, I look at the candy canes in Easton, I look at the candles in Easton, I think it's nice. I think what we hang up now leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yes.
As I'm looking to get in the holiday spirit, I'm jazzed about some other places and less jazzed about here. So I would just like to see an estimate on what a full upgrade of those street
Oh,
decorations
full
would be.
upgrade.
Like new,
Probably one of Joe's officers. Yes, they're not cheap.
We'd have to do a little bit at
I,
pieces, maybe.
because there was public concern over them during the Christmas holiday, and there was willingness to work on getting donations and that stuff. Now that I have some staff that can make phone calls and work on things like that, my plan is to do that during the summer months instead of waiting till we put the decorations up.
well, I have two quick points. One, I just have to go on record as saying in response to our council president's remarks just now that I do believe Santa Claus has come early. And then on a more serious note, very seriously, I'm very impressed by what you said, because I got to tell you, I was ready for you to say, let's strike this. And then I was prepared to say that I don't think $2,500 would be hard for this emerging beautification and festivities group to raise money. We had a lot of people complain. And that same group includes a lot of folks that want their taxes lowered or at least flat. So I'm thankful for that. I would support that.
I'd like us to strike while the iron's hot on some consensus that we're gonna get some information on what it would cost. Even if it was just to
Yes.
do the town square with new lights. I know that Legacy Foundation and others provide the greenery in this corridor, but to see what the cost would be to the town, and I would certainly be supportive, consistent with the things that I believe are part of living in a small town and the reasons that we live places like here. Because I agree, when Ridgely's doing a better job than us, we gotta reevaluate. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, beautification impacts positively all taxpayers,
Yeah.
right? So it's not, sure, there may be some curmudgeons that don't want to see Christmas decorations. They may be on this dais, but,
Eric's in a
I
Christmas
think-
shirt, for
I
God's
think-
sake, it's March.
I was thinking the same thing, but I was not going to say anything.
Anyway, I think it would be good to see what a modest upgrade, and frankly, while I don't necessarily want to strike this budget line item, I do think putting those decorations from last year back up is a non-starter for me.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
When,
Irrespective of Delmarva, I don't want to see I think that you couldn't tell what they were,
for as much time as was spent on them rewiring them, and it's happened for the past 3 years, and the day you put them up, there's already lights out on them.
yeah.
They're done.
They look
Fight the same battle in my own house every year.
Find that one bulb. That's burnt.
come
All
to
right,
my
so
house.
at this time, are we leaving it 2,500? Kip can reevaluate in the summer. We
Yeah.
could do a budget amendment next year if we needed to, based on any purchases. Okay.
ARPA, we got ARPA money we could spend on.
Yeah, you know, the standard allowance is 10 million, so you can really,
You can do a lot of lights for 10 million.
all right, page, that does not have a page, so it's page 22, it's not numbered.
Don't know how that happened.
I don't either. But economic development, same exact budget as last year. Then page 23 would be the cemetery, in which the only increase is based on the increase in costs for the grave openings and such, based on contractor costs.
I can only speak for myself, but I truly hope this is the last year we are looking at a cemetery budget that's owned by the town. I mean, it's high time to figure out how we unload this thing.
I would agree.
We'll bury it in next year's budget.
Now, can I ask
I would be super mindful of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Right.
can I just ask there's one question. So, in previous councils, we designated a cemetery advisory committee, and they would get 90% of the interest earned on the perpetual funds for the year. So there is a budget right now of $1,424. I just need you guys to approve that.
And they use that for cleanups and that
Yeah,
sort of
essentially
thing?
whatever. The same, the park advisory board also has its
Yeah.
own, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to attend, I consent to that.
Okay. Yeah.
I tried to attend one of their meetings, I guess it got moved, to sort of start that conversation.
I'll broker the conversation. That committee meets under the auspices of the town manager, so I'll have the conversation.
I mean, I'm happy to come in, we probably all will be happy to come in and talk with them. What is so we've got a fair amount of revenue on this, but what's
I mean, the
wash generally?
It's probably pretty close, but not fully a wash, I would say.
Okay.
The expense is higher than the revenue.
Last year, it was about $5,000 difference that we were in the black.
I mean, it's not a huge, but it's definitely not that it should be a moneymaker.
And so just in terms of mowing, how much mowing, are we contracting all that out now? Or?
No, the only thing we're contracting out is the trimming, the weed eating.
Okay.
We have one,
But is that the intensive part of,
yes.
okay.
We have, one of our staff is committed to that cemetery all mowing season.
And is that here? No.
No, it's, his salary and everything is just in C11 streets.
So when we talk about the revenue generation, is that included there, or is that another red?
That is not included.
Oh, so with
So
that,
once you add that into it,
Can we have that reflected the way we have in other cost centers where?
If you could give, like, we can get together and get a number of hours based,
we
yeah.
can get a rough.
Just for an estimate. Yeah, because if that's not factored in, then it's definitely a loss.
Yeah.
Oh, and you have to have a lawnmower that's smaller for that, because
Yeah, get
you
in
can't
between.
have the big ones that would just take wide swaths, because you
But
gotta go
it's
between
longer to
heads
cut.
there.
And I do understand, why there is some pride of ownership from the committee and that the town's owned it forever, I guess. I just think, to me, it's not a business we need to be in when there are people who do this professionally.
next door.
Right.
Do a great job at it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the potential exists for them to do a better job
Yeah.
than we're doing.
And I would add that it doesn't mean that the committee has to go away.
Right.
I think whoever would own that would still want that input with the flags put out in wreaths and the beautification kind of programs.
Yeah, and we could work some sort of continued oversight of some sort, since it's in town limits. I just think, I'm not in favor of the privatization of all government services, but there are just some that I think need to be privatized, and that's one of them.
All right, and the final page of the general fund, page 24. This is our watershed fund. The entire budget only increased $1,000, and that's based on, and with COVID simmering down, more meetings to be able to attend. And with that, you guys made it through the general fund. And what we'll do with our next agenda is we'll cut off what we already did and we'll start at the operating and capital budget of the enterprise fund. Just wanted to remind you, when you look at the summary sheets at the beginning, you'll see a line for capital. So these numbers, that 400,000 for the general fund in the whole, is inclusive of the general fund capital. And that's all I got, unless you guys have anything.
We do, we got to do some citizens forming.
And can I just say one more thing before we're completely done? Hopefully George will remind me that I say the right thing. Next week's meeting, March 31st, and the following week's meeting, April 7th. Next week's meeting will be at the Vincent Building. Budget work session will be at the Vincent Building. April 7th, budget work session, regular meeting will be back here. Both of those meetings will be recorded, but they will not be aired live. The county commissioners are live streaming their budget work sessions, which are the same night as those. So, am I right, George? Yep. Yep. So, and then we do have one other meeting that'll be at Vincent in April.
Yeah, 2 in a row, right?
No. Yes, you're right,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm like, wait.
April 7th and March 31st will both be at Vincent, So just for our viewing audience, just so that they know, the next 2 meetings will be recorded, will be aired on TV, but not live streamed.
Thank you. Any citizens wishing to say anything? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.